are these people?
I brought this story because, like, again, there's this group of like science YouTubers that have been funded in part through members of society like Bill Gates, particularly Kurzgesagt is a famous one, right? And this is a video by Tom Scott, right? I think that's his name.
Depending on
this guy, people recognize this guy. Yeah, Tom Scott. But he's going to talk about this. German scientists are literally making a matrix for locusts, like as in the Matrix. Like, so we'll see how this works.
which science fiction you want to reference, the researchers here at the University of Constance in Germany have either built a holodeck from Star Trek, or the Matrix, or something kind of like the old alien abductions from the X-Files. It's just that they've built it for locusts.
One of the great challenges in studying collective behavior is that there's this intricate network of interactions among the individuals that we can't see, we can't control. And so it's really difficult to understand how these locusts with their local interactions can scale up to swarms that can extend across hundreds of square kilometers. We thought, what if we could have individuals moving and interacting with virtual swarms? And so that's why we've designed this setup. What we do is we put the animal on this large motion compensating sphere. As the animal moves, the sphere always moves to keep it on top. And so it can move in a never-ending desert environment. And by tracking that movement, we know where the animal's gone. The locusts believe these virtual individuals to be other locusts. They will tend to align their direction of travel with near individuals. They will think of themselves as being within a real swarm.
Locusts don't have depth perception in the way that humans do. Prey animals generally have eyes on each side of their head, trading off 3D vision for a much wider field of view. So there's no need for sci-fi holographic systems or tiny little 3D glasses here. As long as they keep an exact track on the locust's eye position and update the screen fast enough, it seems to fool them. I'll be honest, I do find this a little bit unsettling, and it's only going to get more unsettling from here.
Ultimately, decision-making is made in the brain of the animal. So if we're to understand these vast swarms, we actually need to go in and look at how the brain processes this information. Yeah. So in this VR, we're basically plugging into the spinal cord. The animal here is tethered. It has to be held in place, but it can still walk freely on a ball that's elevated by air, so it doesn't have friction, allowing the locust again to move and interact with a virtual swarm. So we know what the animal's responding to, but now we can also decode the neural signals that are underlying the decisions it's making. So locusts impact the livelihood of 1 in 10 people on the planet through food shortage. They contribute to humanitarian crises across the globe. Yet, no one understood why they form swarms.
So the researchers here have also commissioned this massive imaging hanger and are going to track thousands of locusts individually by attaching tiny retroreflective tags to each one and using a motion capture system with more than 30 cameras. Sub-millimeter precision, 100 frames a second. Again, I had questions, starting with, where do you order thousands of locusts from?
Well, luckily for us, it turns out that entomophagy, or eating insects, is becoming an important aspect for humans and also for agriculture, for farm animals. So
eats the bugs. Collin eats the bugs.
I have.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Little fried cricket, delicious.
there are actually huge locust breeding centers. We collaborate with them, and so they bred the insects for us. We have a whole team of experienced individuals, from senior professors to undergraduate students, all working together, gluing these little tags on the individuals. And this allows us to see the three-dimensional information much, much more easily than we could using many video cameras. The imaging hangar is 15 by 15 by 8 meters. It's designed to mimic the environment in which locusts have evolved. We have extremely bright lights that capture the natural wavelengths of light that they experience. We have the correct temperature, around 27, 28 degrees centigrade, within this large space. So we're looking at the locusts in different densities to see which different structures and patterns form. But then we also want to understand how these voracious insects eat their way through crops, and also how they avoid predators when doing so. So we're also startling the individuals to see how social behavior also influences their response to predators. When the insects hatch, they're flightless. In fact, they're flightless for the first 2 months of their lives. It's only in the final adult stage that they take to the wing. And so the critical stage for understanding the swarms and also controlling them is these flightless juveniles.
And this is about 10,000 locusts. There are questions about testing on insects, of course, but the consensus right now is that they're insects, and as long as there's no unnecessary harm caused, the trade-off is well worth it. These would have been ground up for animal feed, after all, and the world doesn't have a problem with that. And locust swarms aren't cooperative. Researchers have discovered that locusts march in formation because travelling in the same direction at the same speed is the easiest way for each individual to avoid being eaten by other locusts. If humans can understand this swarm's behaviour, maybe we can start to understand the gigantic, devastating swarms with billions or even trillions of locusts, the ones that destroy food supplies. Or maybe we can start to improve the forecasting tools, because right now the only methods the world has to deal with devastating locust plagues are vast amounts of industrial pesticides and hope.
I find it astonishing that there are pest insects that impact so many people on the planet, and yet there's so little research into this. And one of the main reasons is that the people that really are impacted by locusts, they're subsistence farmers. They can't afford agrochemicals. You also have countries where they've got other problems to deal with, such as internal strife and conflicts. The last experiments we did with locusts when I was based in Oxford, we had, I think the most was 110 individuals. To approximate what they're doing in nature, we need to start looking at tens of thousands of individuals. The key here is that we need these very large-scale experiments to be that bridge between the lab and the wild. One of the amazing things about locusts is that the swarms just suddenly appear out of nowhere. And so what we're trying to mimic here is as population density increases, we think that these swarms...
Yeah. Like, terrible.
Yeah, I have thoughts, but I'll wait till the end to share.
Okay.
I thought initially, like, when you told me about this, I'm like, what kind of fever dream are you trying to have me watch? But,
right.
but
will
I
suddenly
do think,
emerge.
yeah, I'll wait. I'll go. Keep going.
Yeah, we got a little bit more.
Suddenly start marching together in unison. We're just beginning to understand the wonders of collectives, how groups of neurons communicate with each other to allow animals to make decisions, and then how social interactions connect brains together, such as in locust swarms. So we think locusts can sense the environment through this communication within the swarm. This gives them a swarm intelligence that's beyond the brain of any individual. We can use this to begin to understand how and why these swarms form, and therefore how we can best minimize the impact on humans.
It's a couple of hours later. The imaging hangar has been blocked off from all humans for a while, and the researchers here are now seeing marching behaviour that has never been observed in the lab before. It's only ever been in the wild. It's working, and they've come up with like a dozen ideas for new experiments in the last 10 minutes. This is brilliant.
So that was it. That's all of it.
Yeah. So, okay. So, as I said, I thought this was going to be a shit segment.
Yeah.
But I think immediately, and I think someone said you're trying to create the plague, you know,
Yeah.
but I do think in terms of climate change, and especially in the global south, like Africa and like I would assume Latin America too, like there probably are locust swarms like that probably be happening there too as well. But definitely like Africa, where they're very much agricultural societies, like the research that they're doing to kind of think about locust behavior and how they can kind of help navigate that to prevent total destruction, you know, of crops that people need as far as food and like whatever agricultural infrastructure, I think is important. So in that context, it does make sense. And I think especially, I think the variable would be climate change and like change in like weather patterns and like, you know, like we don't, as they said, they don't know necessarily how locust swarms start or why they start and like how they navigate, you know, where they will go in terms of like finding food or whatever, like whatever they do, you
Yeah.
know. So in that sense, I could definitely see this more as a preventative measure in terms of potentially thinking in terms of like how to prevent like natural disasters and essentially like food shortages in areas of the world where they're more dependent on agriculture in that sense. So that kind of makes sense. That being said, a lot of that shit is also kind of like you must have been high to kind of think of all of that as well.
Yeah.
Like you're basically creating like a virtual helmet for a fucking locust.
Right.
Figure
Terrible.
out its movements or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of problems with that whole video. I mean, if there's like so much thrown into like one video, right? Where like one, they're trying to track the brain signals from a locust to figure out how it moves to possibly even replicate that movement, right? You know, I know we've talked about previously through things like Brett Wilkins did an article about it where AI swarms, right? Yeah. Like literally talked about that. And this is just like as steampunk possible, your like the AI swarm is literally get like the most macabre, like Giger would be impressed, you know? Like this is slightly insect Kevorkian, you know? Like, but also they're like tracking of this because of food and agriculture, you know. But yeah, I'm sure the military funding on this is through the roof, so good for them. I'm sure Bill Gates and them are looking at this, you know. It's also how can we grow crickets without them swarming? Like it's that too, you know.
But also, how can we essentially keep them as a food source for us?
Yes, without them eating all of our food sources. Right. So, yeah, there's a lot going on there. You know, they had to like literally tap into the brain of a locust to see things. Like that's gonna go well. That feels like a horror movie waiting to happen.
Just don't understand, like, I mean, there is some benefit to this, but at the same time, it's like the amount of money for this, and yet we don't have cancer cured. We don't have all these diseases cured. We don't even have like money for universal healthcare in this money, but you're able to spend this money on locusts, right? So, again, I kind of have a problem in terms of, not to say that the science on this isn't valid. I'm sure it is. And I mentioned, you know, some things that how it could be valid, but to do this over, and not even that, actually just kind of taking care of our world just generally, and just ensure that people have food, you know, at bare minimum. Like,
yeah, I mean, this is being funded outside the US, which I mean, it's a NATO country, Germany, like Charles Schwab all over that country. Like this is definitely, you know, I'm sure members of the what was that we covered earlier, the Center for Inclusive Capitalism or the Committee for Inclusive like I'm sure they're part of it. Rothschild's probably funding part of this. You know, I mean, it's standard scientific research, but like who asks for it? Why exactly are they doing it? Who's funding the research? Like none of that's really said, you know, which is partly why science YouTube is the way it is, you know. And I think for particular reasons, you know, there's videos on the internet, especially about like Kurzagat, a very particular YouTuber, was in bed with like the Gates Foundation, essentially. Right, you know, and it showed with their coverage of vaccines, with their coverage of a lot of things. So, you know, I think a lot of this is used to kind of manufacture some consent for things that people probably wouldn't consent to if they knew about it. But, you know, I also get the benefits of like not having locusts swarm and eat crops, so whatever. But And as it probably, you notice they were controlling the temperature and the sunlight. Yes. Why do you think they did that? Because it might affect the locust's ability to swarm. So things like global warming, global climate change, things like that. If their climate suddenly changes, is that a factor? That's why they're testing that.
Yes.
So
yeah, and that's what I immediately thought of when they were testing that in terms of the swarms.
Yes.
But it makes sense if Bill Gates' hand is on this. Obviously, he's trying to profit off of this. So obviously, any swarms would, at the end of the day, minimize his profits. Just based on the land that he's buying up, especially like in the global south.
Who are these people?
Well, our next story this evening, we're on a roll today. So this is from Brett Wilkins over at Common Dreams. We've had him on the show before. If you want to go back and find those, they should be here on Rockfin and Rumble. And if you want to go check our YouTube channel, they're on there. But so a new report unpacks dangers of emerging military tech from AI nukes. God, that sounds fucking awful. To killer robots, while the media and the U.S. Congress have devoted much attention to the purported benefits of exploiting cutting-edge technologies for military use, far less has been said about the risks involved. Why would they do that? Why would they do that, Brett? So emerging technologies, including AI, lethal autonomous weapon systems, and hypersonic missiles, pose a potentially existential threat that underscores the imperative of arms control measures to slow the pace of weaponization, according to a new report published Tuesday. The Arms Control Association report, entitled Assessing the Dangers, Emerging Military Technologies, and Nuclear Instability. Links to the article in the description below if you want to go check out these actual reports. He has them linked in that article. But it unpacks the concept of emerging technologies and summarizes the debate over the utilization for military purposes and their impact on strategic stability. So, the publication notes that the world's military powers have sought to exploit advanced technologies, artificial intelligence, autonomy, cyber, and hypersonics, among others, to gain battlefield advantages, but warns too little has been said about the dangers these weapons represent. Some officials and analysts post that such emerging technologies will revolutionize warfare, making obsolete the weapons and strategies of the past, the report states. Yet before the major powers move quickly ahead with the weaponization of these technologies, there is a great need for policymakers, defense officials, diplomats, journalists, educators, and members of the public to better understand the unintended and hazardous outcome of these technologies.
So basically, they're creating a technology that could potentially nuke us because they don't know, they haven't tested them fully to see.
Yes. Yeah, but they also they've not tested it in ways of like, how could it go wrong? What's the, like, where are the contingencies that might happen? Because they don't want to do that because they want big boom boom, So here's that Arms Control Association. You can find them on Twitter. Says the extent which military use of emerging tech result in accidental use of nuclear weapons in a crisis. Okay? Accidental. And provides a framework for curtailing the indiscriminate weapons of such tech. So, lethal autonomous weapon systems defined by the Campaign to Stop Killer Robots as armaments that operate independent of meaningful human control. They're being developed by nations including China, Israel, Russia, South Korea, the United Kingdom, and the United States. This is called fucking gun racing, arms races. So, in the United States, the U.S. Air Force's sci-fi sounding Skyborg autonomous control system, like, bruh, like, what are we doing? Why are you naming it that shit? Y'all need to knock it off. All right? God. Could you should have just called it Skynet. You went worse and went Skyborg. Resistance is futile to Terminators. Yes.
Right.
Like what? Currently under development. Go ahead.
Sorry, you should have just made the thumbnail like Terminator, basically. This is what
yeah.
Basically, this is what this is.
Where's fucking
movie,
John Connor
basically.
when you fucking John
Or iRobot.
Yes. So
I think that'll be a better comparison, but
this system is intended to control multiple drone aircraft simultaneously and allow them to operate in swarms. Not swarms. Multiple swarms. Like plural. Fuck. Coordinating their actions with one another with minimum oversight by human pilots. God damn it. That's just murder, like mosquitoes. Like that's okay. Although the rapid deployment of such systems appears highly desirable to many military officials, their development has generated considerable alarm among diplomats, human rights campaigners, arms control advocates, and others who fear that developing fully autonomous weapons in battle would severely reduce human oversight of combat operations, possibly resulting in violations of international law, and could weaken barriers that restrain escalation from conventional to nuclear war. Yeah. The later half of the 20th century witnessed numerous nuclear close calls, many based on misinterpretations, limitations, or outright failures of technology, while technologies like AI are often touted as immune to human fallibility. The research suggests that such claims and hubris could have deadly and unforeseen consequences. Yay. Major powers are rushing ahead with the weaponization of advanced technologies before they have fully considered, let alone attempted, to mitigate the consequences of doing so. An increased reliance on AI could lead to new types of catastrophic mistakes. A 2018 report by the Rand Corporation warned there may be pressure to use it before it is technologically mature. It may be susceptible to adversarial subversion, or adversaries may believe that the AI is more capable than it is, leading them to make catastrophic mistakes. This is the issue, Colin. This fucks with fucking mutually assured destruction. They feel like they can this is like preemptive fucking precog pre-crime nuke shit.
Right.
Like,
so basically, it's the idea of like it should be theoretically better able to predict.
Right. So then they have no way of like. So what that means is that they have no way of retaliating against you. Therefore, before you build this,
retaliating against people, they're just retaliating against a machine.
Yes, but the fact is that machine would help us stop them from retaliating against us. Therefore, they need to pre-strike us. That's how this goes. This is how mutually. Have we not watched Strangelove? This is literally the fucking thing in like. God.
I will say this: if they're planning this technology, will there be a need for armed for like actual humans, basically?
Someone's got to flip switches somewhere.
I mean,
well,
yeah, but
the issue is like
on the ground, on the field. You know,
maybe,
that's what I'm wondering.
Well, I mean, we don't have bipedal robots and stuff like that. Like drones and stuff might be used more. We're already doing this. We're already using much more. Like,
granted, I could see like there's going to be a stronger need for like engineers and all this kind of stuff in order to be able to do this. But I'm just wondering, like, you know, who's going to be on the ground to be able to.
And who's to say that any of this AI listens to you? Like, why? We've already seen 1,000 sci-fi movies that end badly this way. So, while the Pentagon in 2020 adopted 5 principles for what it calls the ethical use of AI, I do not trust the Pentagon to fucking make any decisions on ethics. Oh my god. Many ethics argue
what novel is iRobot based? There's like 5. Yeah. So it's exactly
yeah. Use of AI, many ethics argue the only safe course of action is a total ban on lethal autonomous weapon systems. Yes. Hypersonic missiles, which can travel at speeds of Mach 5, 5 times the speed of sound or faster, are now part of at least the US, Chinese, and Russian arsenals. Last year, Russian officials acknowledged deploying Kinzhal hypersonic missiles 3 times during the country's invasion of Ukraine in what is believed to be the first ever use of such weapons in combat. In recent years, China has tested multiple hypersonic missile variants using specific designed high-altitude balloons. Okay? Countries including Australia, France, India, Japan, Germany, Iran, and North Korea are also developing hypersonic weapons. Yeah. That's why they were so worried about that fucking balloon, by the way, Care Bear.
Right.
Yeah. The report also warns of the escalatory potential of cyber warfare and automated battlefield decision-making, as was the case during World War I and II. The major powers are rushing ahead with the weaponization of advanced technologies before they have fully considered, let alone attempted to mitigate, the consequences of doing so, including the risk of significant civilian casualties and the accidental or inadvertent escalation of conflict. Michael Clare, a board member of the Arms Control Association and the report's lead author, said in a statement, while the media and the U.S. Congress had devoted much attention to the purported benefits of exploiting cutting-edge technologies for military use, far less has been said about the risks involved. The report asserts that bilateral and multilateral agreements between countries that appreciate the escalatory risks posed by the weaponization of emerging technologies are critical to minimizing those dangers. As an example, for a useful first step, the leaders of the major nuclear powers could jointly pledge to eschew cyber attacks against each other's command, control, communication, and information systems, the report states. A code of conduct governing the military use of AI based on the Pentagon's AI ethics principles is also recommended. If the major powers are prepared to discuss binding restrictions on the military use of destabilizing technologies, certain priorities take precedence, the paper argues. The first would be an agreements prohibiting attacks on the nuclear C3I systems of another state by cyberspace means or via missile strikes, especially hypersonic ones. Another top priority would be measures aimed at preventing swarm attacks by autonomous weapons on another state's missile submarines, mobile ICBMs, and other second strike retaliatory systems. The report continues, referring to intercontinental ballistic missiles. Strict limitations should be imposed on the use of automated decision support systems with the capacity to inform or initiate major battlefield decisions, including a requirement that humans exercise ultimate control over such devices. Without the adoption of measures such as these, cutting-edge technologies will be converted into military systems at an ever-increasing tempo, and the dangers to world security would grow apace. The publication concluded, a more thorough understanding of the distinctive threats to strategic stability posed by these technologies and the imposition of restraints on their military use would go a long way towards reducing the risk of Armageddon.
We're fucked.
We're so fucked. God.
This, those of you who watch anime know about Neo Genesis Evangelion. Like, and I'm trying to get Reef to watch it, and you should watch it anyway. But like, basically, the idea, like, it's apocalyptic world, and this military agency is basically use cyborgs, giant cyborgs,
Yep.
to defeat this alien race known as angels in the anime. But basically, the whole military base nerve is run by supercomputers.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, these supercomputers make the decisions as to, calculate like chances of them, like winning or losing a battle against these angels. Even though like they're the ones that created it, humans, it was ultimately the decisions were left usually up to these computers.
Yeah.
So this is what this reminds me of.
Very
Except
much.
I feel like in this case,
there's a
like,
video. Hold on. Let's see if I can find it while you're talking.
Yeah, but this just kind of seems like we want to create the tech and not as make any decisions. Like we just allow the AI to do its thing, without thinking of the cause and effect in terms of like what can happen, especially within the article that Brett says, like it's not technologically mature enough, like I'm just thinking of every possible thing that could go wrong in terms of like the execution without any ethical standpoint as to how and for what reason they should be using these things.
Yeah.
What are you looking for, by the way?
I'm looking for a video. I think I found it. It's called Slaughterbots. Let me check, make sure this is the right thing I need. Yeah, I think it is. It's short. It's a little short video.
Okay. Well, you have time, so.
Yeah, we got plenty.
Customer pilots directed almost 3,000 precision strikes last year. We're super proud of it. It allows you to separate the bad
This is
guys
supposed to
from
be
the
a
good.
science
big
fiction horror.
But we have something much bigger.
What is that?
Your kids
that's
probably
a little
have one of
mini
these,
drone.
right? Not quite. Hell of a pilot? No. That skill is all AI. It's flying itself. Its processor can react 100 times faster than a human. The stochastic motion is an anti-sniper feature. Just like any mobile device these days, it has cameras and sensors, and just like your phones and social media apps, it does facial recognition. Inside here is 3 grams of shaped explosive. This is how it works.
What the?
Did you see that? That
This is real.
is enough to penetrate the skull.
This is made by
and destroy
someone.
the contents. They used to say guns don't
But
kill
we just read a story
people.
about this is what they're working
Well,
on.
people don't. They get emotional,
Wait.
disobey orders, aim high. Let's watch the weapons make the decisions. Now, trust me, these were all bad guys. Now, that is an airstrike of surgical precision. It's one of a range of
Why are
products.
people
Trained as a
clapping?
team, they can penetrate buildings, cars,
This is a
trains,
movie.
evade people,
This is fictional,
bullets,
but
pretty much any countermeasure. They cannot be stopped. Now, I said this was big. Why? Because we are thinking big.
yeah, we
Watch.
are.
A $25 million order now buys this. Enough to kill half a city.
So remember we were talking about
The bad
swarms?
half.
Yes.
Nuclear
Yep.
is obsolete. Take out your entire enemy, virtually risk-free. Just characterize him, release the swarm, and rest easy. These are available today. We have a distribution network taking orders from military, law enforcement, and specialist clients.
The nation is still recovering from yesterday's incident, which officials are describing as some kind of automated attack, which killed 11 U.S. senators at the Capitol building.
They flew in from everywhere but attacked just one side of the aisle. It was chaos. People were screaming.
You can see high windows, very small, precisely punctured to gain entry to the building.
What did you do for the victim?
I just did what I could for him. Things weren't even interested in me. They're just buzzing.
Government sources admit the intelligence community has no idea who perpetrated the attack, nor whether it was a state, group, or even a single individual.
So if we can't defend ourselves, then we strike back.
We are investing very heavily in classified defense projects.
We make it our deterrent like our nuclear deterrent. We stockpile in the millions, the billions.
At key facilities, the White House, the New York Stock Exchange, Wall Street.
Safe in their homes.
Well, we wish we had boots on the ground in every community in this country, but we don't. So our instructions
Ollie?
and our suggestions are to stay in touch with you.
Ollie, hi. Hi, Ollie, honey. How's Edinburgh today? How are all your studies going, huh?
Good. Great.
Oh, great. Hey, aren't we doing a video call today?
I'm kind of with people, so.
Oh, well, come on, Oliver, put her on.
Oh no, it's not like that. No, wait.
Oh, well, listen, I see some photos here with somebody, and I can see lots of likes, and what's that all about? Oh, wait a minute, here, and on your
Mom, she's on the spy stuff in the military.
What is this video right here? Oh, no, I'm not going to click on that.
It's just this human rights thing about oppression or whatever.
Honey, you're not going into politics, are you? I mean, no protest.
Safe here, just like you said it would be.
Heavy traffic approaching the A720 this morning due to police.
Police are not saying this morning what prompted the alert.
Claim relaxing firearm legislation would be useless against the so-called slaughter bots.
Is to stay away from crowds. When indoors, keep windows covered with shutters.
Protect your family. Stay inside.
Can you hear me? Oliver, can you hear me? Listen to me.
I can hear it.
Authorities are still struggling to make sense of an attack on university campuses worldwide, which targeted some students and not others. The search for a motive is apparently turning to social media, and a video shared by the victims exposing corruption at the height.
But it's far from surprising. The weapons took away the expense, danger, and risk of waging war. And now we can't afford to challenge anyone, really. It's not even the smallest fringe group or a crank.
Who could have done this?
Anyone.
Dumb weapons drop where you point them. Smart weapons consume data. When you can find your enemy using data, even by a hashtag, you can target an evil ideology right where it starts.
This short film is more than just speculation. It shows the results of integrating and miniaturizing technologies that we already have. I'm Stuart Russell, a professor of computer science at Berkeley. I've worked in AI for more than 35 years. Its potential to benefit humanity is enormous, even in defense. But allowing machines to choose to kill humans will be devastating to our security and freedom. Thousands of my fellow researchers agree. We have an opportunity to prevent the future you just saw, but the window to act is closing fast.
Autonomousweapons.org.
That is scary. I need a minute. This is not fun at
Nope.
all.
Nope.
I mean, the technology is like we have drones now, so it's
They're
not
already
like
being yes, but they're controlled by humans at least, not by
right. But
AI.
the fact that we have drones now, it's not so far fetched that this is like that's
No,
the
that
next.
was definitely doable.
Yeah. So, making them smaller, which they're starting to.
They already do. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're already and like so it's. Yeah, I'm glad you told me that this is essentially like a short film, but still, like
Yes.
this can happen.
That's real doable. Yeah.
Right. You should send that to Brad.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, I'm sure he's
probably
seen
just
it.
As well, probably just as well we doing this on Rockman because
yeah.
like YouTube would have taken that down or have us demonetized for that.
Yeah.
But I mean,
I don't think so. I think
think
we fair use that enough.
Right. But all that to say, I think thank you for that. Like it's one thing to read it, but I think it's another thing to kind of see it.
Yeah.
And but that's scary.
Yeah, it is.
That's really scary.
And that's just one thing they were talking about, let alone all the other crap they were talking about.
I think it's just the idea of like smaller, faster, quicker, a lot more effective killing machines. That's really all it is. But man, that's scary.
Yeah, it is.
And
Ooh.
And the sad thing is there's nothing we can do to necessarily stop that.
No.
Or at least people thinking that this is okay to do.
It's like the Berkeley guy said, like the window's running out on stopping that from happening.
Right.
So
But I think it makes sense in terms of like with this proxy war in Ukraine and now like poking the I'll say bear, but dragon in China, like it's just gonna fuel the fire to create stuff like this and quickly.
Yep.
So I just feel like it's here.
Yeah, this is
like,
called an arms race. That's what this is called.
Like the door is closed already. And like I just feel like these wars essentially that we're in right now, war, but potentially another one and probably more on the pike, it's just more of a reason to create these technologies like this so that, it just gives our government an excuse to get out our new toys.
And that video was incredibly well done. I think it was Atrium that put it together. It was excellent.
But Jesus Christ, like, yeah, show that to Brad. Like,
Jeez.
Who are these people?
Collin, I'm sorry this is going to be long, but we're going to do it because I think it's important and no one else has talked about it. I think no one else has talked about it for multiple reasons. We'll come to find out shortly. This is going to be one of those things where you're like, why'd you cover this? And it's like, oh, I know why you covered this. So, I'm referencing a lyric by Jesse Jet, the title.
I just have to use the little boys' room, so you can start, but I can hear you.
Cool.
And I'll be back in a second.
Yes, sir. Can do. So again, this is from Neuralink volunteers, right? We're gonna start there. We're gonna talk about some Neuralink stuff. So this is Sheer Post, right? It's actually Unlimited Hangout with Stavula Patz, who I think is also over there at the Quincy Institute for Responsible Statecraft. Stuff there. She's doing it up. So, but she's talking about weaponizing reality and the dawn of neurowarfare. Neurowarfare, you might ask what that might be. We're going to get into it. So, we're going to start with billionaire Elon Musk's brain-computer interface. Company Neuralink made headlines earlier this year for inserting its first brain implant into a human being. Musk says such implants, which are described as fully implantable, cosmetically invisible, and designed to let you control a computer or mobile device anywhere you go, are slated to eventually offer full bandwidth data streaming to the brain, straight to the membrane. Brain-computer interfaces, BCIs, are quite the human achievement. As described by the University of Calgary, a brain-computer interface, BCI, is a system that determines functional intent, the desire to change, move, control, or interact with something in your environment directly from your brain activity. In other words, BCIs allow you to control an application or a device using only your mind. Any questions so far, Care Bear? No. Everything makes sense?
Yes.
Oh, there you go. What? Telling you, there you go.
Oh.
I'm caught up to you.
Okay.
Cool. You were saying?
So basically, it's the literal they want to control.
In some cases, yes, but it's more, in this instance, you being able to control other things. So, but yes, so developers and advocates of BCIs and adjacent technologies emphasize that they can help people regain abilities lost due to aging, ailments, accidents, or injuries, thus improving quality of life. A brain implant created by Swiss-based École Polytechnique Fédérale in Lausanne, for example, has allowed a paralyzed man to walk again just by thinking. Others go further. Neuralink's goal is to help people surpass able-bodied human performance. Yet, great ethical concerns arise with such advancements, and the tech is already being used for questionable purposes to better plan logistics and boost productivity. For example, some Chinese employers have started using emotional surveillance technology to monitor workers' brain waves, which, combined with AI algorithms, can spot incidents of workplace rage, anxiety, or sadness. The example showcases how personal technology can become and is normalized in daily life. Wouldn't you like that, Colin, as you're teaching the kiddos? An emotional tracking device? Wouldn't that be fun? But the ethical, oh no, he's gonna kill one of them kids. Anyway, so the ethical ramifications of BCIs and other emergency neurotechnologies don't stop the consumer market or the workplace. Governments and militaries are already discussing and experimenting on the roles they could play in wartime. We can't have a technology without it needed for war, Care Bear. Indeed, many are describing the human body and brain as war's next domain, with a 2020 NATO-backed paper on cognitive warfare describing the phenomenon's objective as making everyone a weapon. The brain will be the battlefield of the 21st century. The NATO-backed paper in 2020, okay? So, on this new battlefield, an era of neuroweapons, which can broadly be defined as technologies and systems that can either enhance or damage a warfighter, or target cognitive and or physical abilities to otherwise attack people or critical societal infrastructure, has begun. In this exploration of the race to apply the latest neurotechnologies to war and beyond, I investigated how the neuroweapons of tomorrow, including BCIs that may allow for brain-to-brain or brain-to-machine communication, have the capacity to expand conflicts into a new domain, the brain, while also bringing a new dimension to both hard and soft power struggles of the future. In response to ongoing neurotechnology developments, some allege neurorights will protect people's minds from possible privacy infringements and a myriad of ethical issues that new neurotechnologies may pose in years to come. However, neurorights advocates close proximity to the very organizations advancing these neurotechnologies deserve scrutiny and potentially suggest the neurorights movement is poised instead to normalize advanced neurotechnology presence in daily life, perhaps forever changing human relationships with machines, and I'm sure that will be for both good and bad. Indeed, neuroscience's very origin lie in a war. As Dr. Wallace Mendelsohn explains in Psych Today, just as American neurology was born in the Civil War, the roots of neuroscience are embedded in World War II. He explains that while the bond between war and neuroscience has contributed to meaningful advances of human condition, like the improved understanding of ailments like PTSD, it has left some worried about neuroscience's possible military application. Controversial, yet well-known government attempts to learn more about the brain include Project Bluebird/Artichoke, a 1950s-era project that worked to determine whether people could be involuntarily made to carry out assassinations through hypnosis, as well as the especially infamous MK-Ultra, where human mind control experiments were carried out in a variety of institutions in the 1950s and 60s. These projects' respective conclusions, however, did not signal an end to the U.S. government's interest in invasive mind studies and technology. Rather, governments internationally have been interested in the brain sciences ever since, investing heavily in neuroscience and neurotech research. That's where some of that military tax funding is going to, Colin. Initiative and research explored in this article, like the Brain Initiative and the United States Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, otherwise known as DARPA, their next-generation non-surgical neurotechnology are often portrayed as altruistic strides towards improving brain health, helping people recover lost physical or mental abilities, and otherwise improving quality of life. Unfortunately, a deeper look reveals a prioritization of military might. The military is intensely interested in emerging neurotechnologies. The Pentagon's research arm, DARPA, directly or indirectly funds about half of invasive neural interface technology companies in the U.S. In fact, as Nico McCarthy and Milan Sikovic highlight in their 2023 write-up of DARPA's neurotech efforts, that DARPA has initiated at least 40 neurotechnology-related programs over the past 24 years. From the Interface describes the current state of affairs as DARPA funding effectively driving the BCI research agenda. Look, there you go, Colin. That can, invade your nightmares. This is the future soldier at U.S. Army Recruiting Command. Look how cute he looks. He's got the little alien gun and everything. It's fun. So as we shall see.
Before you
yes.
continue, hold on. What is our Cash App link?
Do what? Oh, it should be asking. Money sign Indie News Network, I think. Hold on. I have to go all the way to the top. I'm at slide 107. I think slide right before this. cashapp.com/money sign Indie News Network. That's it. So what slide was on? 103. Right?
I think so.
103. So controversial, yes, that's what we just did. I might have went to, there we go. So, as we shall see, such projects, many of which focus on somehow enhancing the capabilities of the recipient or wearer of a given piece of technology, are making activities like telepathy, mind control, and mind reading, once the stuff of science fiction, at least plausible, if not tomorrow's reality. So, as McCarthy and Sikovic explain on their Substack, for example, the 1999 DARPA-funded fundamental research at the Bioinfo Micro-Interface Program led to significant firsts in brain-computer interfaces research, including allowing monkeys to learn to control a brain-machine interface to reach and grab objects without moving their arm. In another project from the program, monkeys learned to position cursors on a computer screen without the animals emitting any behavior, where signals extrapolated from the monkey's moving goals were read and decoded to move the mouse. McCarthy and Sikovic also highlight that in more recent years, the DARPA-funded scientists have also created the world's most dexterous bionic arm, with biodirectional controls, have used brain-computer interface to accelerate memory formation and recalling, and have even transferred a memory, specific neural firing pattern, from one rat to another, with a rat receiving the memory, almost instantaneously learned to perform a task that simply took weeks of training to learn. Okay? Does that sound like the Matrix to you?
Yes.
Sounds like it to me. Just download Kung Fu. So this is from a TED Med tab. So I'm gonna throw this on it. But this will explain a bit of what was happening.
We started with a superstar monkey called Aurora that
Aurora, that's who we started with.
became one of the superstars of this field. And Aurora liked to play video games. As you can see here, she likes to use a joystick like any one of us, any of our kids, to play this game. And as a good primate, she even tries to cheat before she gets the right answer. So even before a target appears that she's supposed to cross, so the cursor that she's controlling with this joystick,
so
Aurora is trying to find the target, no matter where it is. And she's doing that because every time she crosses that target with the little cursor, she gets a drop of Brazilian orange juice. And I can tell you, any monkey will do anything for you if you get the little drop of Brazilian orange juice. Actually, any primate will do that. Think about that. Well, while Aurora was playing this game, as you saw, and doing, 1,000 trials a day and getting 97% correct and 350 mLs of orange juice, we were recording the brainstorms that were produced in her head and sending to a robotic arm that was learning to reproduce the movements that Aurora was making. Because the idea was to actually turn on this brain-machine interface and have Aurora play the game just by thinking, without the interference of her body. Her brainstorms would control an arm that would move the cursor and cross the target. And to our shock, that's exactly what Aurora did. She played the game without moving her body. So every trajectory that you see the cursor now, this is the exact first moment she got that. That's the exact first moment a brain intention was liberated from the physical domains of a body of a primate and could act outside, in that outside world, just by controlling an artificial device. And Aurora kept playing the game, kept finding that little target and getting the orange juice that she wanted to get, that she craved for. Well, she did that because she, at that time, had acquired a new arm. The robotic arm that you see moving here 30 days later, after the first video that I showed to you, is under the control of Aurora's brain and is moving the cursor to get to the target. And Aurora now knows that she can play the game with this robotic arm, but she has not lost the ability to use her biological arms to do what she pleases. She can scratch her back, she can scratch one of us, she can play another game. By all purposes and means, Aurora's brain has incorporated that artificial device as an extension of her body. The model of the self that Aurora had in her mind has been expanded to get one more arm. Well, we did that 10 years ago. Just feed forward 10 years. Just last year, we realized that you don't need even to have a robotic device. You can just build a computational body, an avatar, a monkey avatar. And you can actually use it for our monkeys to either interact with them, or you can train them to assume in a virtual world the first person's perspective of that avatar and use her brain activity to control the movements of the avatar arms or legs. And what we did basically was to train the animals to learn how to control these avatars and explore objects that appear in the virtual world. And these objects are visually identical, but when the avatar crosses the surface of these objects, there is an electrical message that is proportional to the micro-tactile texture of the object that goes back directly to the monkey's brain.
Did you catch that? What that was doing? So that's, if it's over an object, it will send a signal to the brain so that, it knows what's, the right signal. So without hearing anything, without seeing anything, it is getting tactile feedback.
Informing the brain what is that the avatar is touching. And in just 4 weeks, the brain learns to process this new sensation and acquires a new sensory pathway, like a new sense. And you truly liberate the brain now because you are allowing the brain to send motor commands to move this avatar, and the feedback that comes from the avatar is being processed directly by the brain without the interference of the skin. So what you see here is, this is the design of the task. You're going to see an animal basically touching these 3 targets, and he has to select one because only one carries the reward, the orange juice that they want to get. And he has to select it by touch using a virtual arm, an arm that doesn't exist. And that's exactly what they do. This is a complete liberation of the brain from the physical constraints of the body in a motor and a perceptual task. The animal is controlling the avatar to touch the targets, and is sensing the texture by receiving an electrical message directly in the brain. And the brain is deciding what is the texture associated to the reward. The legends that you see in the movie doesn't appear for the monkey. And by the way, they don't read English anyway. So they are here just for you to know that the correct target is shifting position, and yet they can find them by tactile discrimination, and they can press it and select it.
Any questions? Like, what?
That's scary. That's scary.
Yeah. Very.
Where to begin with this? This is like... But again, thinking, and thanks to you, like my mind automatically goes this to this now, that it doesn't have to be an arm.
Yeah.
It could be a drone.
Mm-hmm.
That you can essentially program a drone, especially in the military, to do whatever you want it to do. Like just by thinking, go to this place and do with this thing. Like that's that drone movie basically that you made me watch like last year.
It's also every dystopian sci-fi like ever. This is The Matrix. This is Ready Player One. I mean, it's everything that's bad with all of that. So you're wondering the war effort with this, right? Because that's what I was wondering too.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we can point at a target and select it. So we're gonna make things that are unaware of what they're doing, like target things, and that's what's that? Now I'm gonna forget that one. Ender's Game. That's like the Ender's Game thing too. Anyway, I won't spoil that for people, but Black Mirror episodes, it's just the worst. So the Brain Initiative, a U.S. government initiative founded in 2013, is aimed at revolutionizing our understanding of the human brain to accelerate the capacities of the neuroscience and neurotechnologies inspired by the earlier Human Genome Project, which ran until 2003 and generated the first sequence of the human genome. The Brain Initiative markets itself as an initiative working to address common brain disorders like Alzheimer's and depression through intense research of the brain and its operations. Next. Led by the National Institute of Health, the National Science Foundation, and DARPA, its prominent private partners include the Allen Institute for Brain Sciences, the Howard Hughes Medical Institute, the Kavli Foundation, and the Salk Institute for Biological Studies. This mix of actors effectively makes the Brain Initiative an opaque public-private partnership. Like many neurotech and adjacent initiatives, the Brain Initiative depicts itself as a research-forward public effort that can improve human well-being. Yet, cash flow suggests that its priorities lie more in the military sphere. As per 2013 reporting from Scientific American, DARPA is the biggest funder of the Brain Initiative. So, Collin, by the way, just try to leave Discord and come back and see if your net fixes a little bit while I continue. But what does DARPA's interest in the Brain Initiative amount to, practically speaking? Apparently, the stuff of science fiction. So, indeed, an article titled DARPA and the Brain Initiative, an apparently now deleted page on DARPA's website, explored DARPA's electronic collaboration with the Brain Initiative. Co-projects include the ElectRx program, which aims to help the human body heal itself through neuromodulation of organ function. Through injectable ultra-miniaturized devices, the Haptics program, which is working on neural interface microsystems that communicate externally, deliver naturalistic sensation, especially to make prosthetic limbs feel and touch naturally. Remember that whole touch target is correct thing, right? And the ReNet program, which aims to create technologies able to extract information from the nervous system quickly enough to control complex machines. Although such projects appeal state-of-the-art technologies to the brain to maximize its utilization in and out of conflict, perhaps one day allow for self-healing, a rehabilitated sense of touch for those with lost limbs, and brain-machine communication systems that utilize thoughts to operate for machinery. Adjacent neurotech efforts include DARPA's next-generation non-surgical neurotechnology, which has a budget of at least $125 million. According to DARPA's 2018 funding brief for the project, a neural interface that enables fast, effective, and intuitive hands-free interaction with military systems by able-bodied warfighters is the ultimate program goal. In plain language, the project is about developing technology that can help warfighters interact and command military infrastructure, planes, drones, bombs, etc., with their thoughts and without the need for an invasive Neuralink-style implant. I also believe that, there's plenty of our veterans with wounded limbs and stuff like that they might still want piloting things. You know what I'm saying? So, look, there they are. Using our little Xbox controller, right? So this is DARPA's Cognitive Technology Threat Warning System. Combines soldiers, EEG brainwave scanners, 120 megapixel cameras, and multiple computers running cognitive visual processing algorithms into a cybernetic hive mind. Yay. Don't those words sound fun? DARPA has provided funding to a number of institutions and orgs, including Rice University and Battelle, a Columbus, Ohio-based science and technology development company and military intelligence contractor, to take on critical research towards these ends. According to a Rice University press release, Rice University neuroengineers are leading an ambitious DARPA-funded project to develop Moana, a non-surgical device capable of both decoding neural activity in one person's visual cortex and recreating it in another in less than 1/20th of a second. Did you catch that one?
Yes.
Memory transfer is what that sounds like. The Moana project researchers have been working on the wireless linkage of brains, even using a remote control to hack into fruit fly brains to command their wings. Meanwhile, Battelle's in-3 funds are developing Brainstorms, an injectable bi-directional brain-computer interface which one day could, in tandem with a helmet, be used by someone to direct or control vehicles, robots, and other instruments with their thoughts. In addition to an investment in neurotech projects facilitating brain-based communications and operations of various techs, neurotech advancement, including improving or augmenting the brain's capacity to operate in myriad ways that will assist fighters on the battlefield. Enhancements that claim to improve soldiers' battlefield performance are not new, have previously included illicit drugs, cocaine, and the like. Recent developments in neuroscience have jump-started new possibilities, with tech and techniques including BCIs, there's that brain control interface, neuropharmacologies, and or electric currents to stimulate the brain potentially, according to the Small Wars Journal, improving warfighter performance by enhancing memory, concentration, motivation, and situational awareness, while negating the physiological ills of increased sleep, stress, pain, and traumatic memories. You can just suck those memories right on out, Care Bear, give them to someone else. Indeed, augmented cognition has been an area of focus for DARPA, which works to develop tech capable of exceeding by any order of magnitude the information management capacity of warfighters in the early 2000s. More recently, University of Florida computer science and information researchers in 2022 have received DARPA's support to work to augment human cognition by providing task guidance to to augmented reality headset technology in extreme environments, including high hazard and risky operations. And similar initiatives to better understand and otherwise enhance the brain and its capacities to take on myriad, especially war-focused tasks, are ongoing. Notably, Spanish researchers developed a human brain-to-brain interface in 2014 that allowed humans to communicate with each other by only thinking. The project was funded by the European Commission's Future and Emerging Technology, which is often described as a DARPA equivalent, indicating international interest in developing adjacent technologies. Other such efforts around the globe include the EU-funded Human Brain Project, the China Brain Project, Japan's Brain Minds Initiative, and Canada's Brain Canada. Dr. Raphael Just, who I shall discuss in more detail, who helped propose the Brain Initiative, is also the coordinator for the International Brain Initiative, which coordinates neurotech efforts and policy-making discussions on the subject at the international level. So here you go. Here's the Brain Initiative timeline, right? The Obama announces Brain Initiative, DARPA commit $100 million in 2014, FDA and DARPA join, $400 million per year funding period, $500 million per year funding period for application of new tools, right? So, fun stuff, right? Look, federal partners. We got the NIH, we got FDA, all that stuff are involved. So, fun. But anyway, dystopian or not, DARPA and its collaborators and counterparts have been working over the decades to make once unbelievable activities like brain-to-brain and brain-to-machine communication plausible, if not likely in the years to come, as we will see such technologies' impact on the international stage, the battlefield, and daily life alike will be profound if realized. So, ultimately, the advances of emerging BCIs and adjacent tools on the battlefield and the conflict are double-sided, as any advancement made to boost a warfighter's performance can often be applied toward destructive purposes in neurowarfare. In other words, the brain is capable of being enhanced as well as attacked. In 2024, RAND report speculates if BCI technologies are hacked or compromised, a malicious adversary could potentially inject fear, confusion, or anger into a BCI commander's brain and cause them to make decisions that result in serious harm. Academic Nicolin Evans speculates further that neuroimplants could control an individual's mental function, perhaps to manipulate memories, emotions, even to torture the wearer. Based on those considerations and speculations, if BCIs are used en masse at either the warfighter or civilian level, it seems plausible that some attacks could hone on the BCIs of hostile persons, warfighters or otherwise, to manipulate the contents of their mind or even brainwash them in some capacity. Meanwhile, academic Armand Christian even posts that forms of mind control found in nature, such as those utilized by gene-manipulating parasites, could eventually be possible. In a 2016 article on neurowarfare, he wrote, "Microbiologists have recently discovered mind-controlling parasites that can manipulate the behavior of their hosts according to their needs by switching genes on or off. Since human behavior is at least partially influenced by their genetics, non-lethal behavior-modifying genetic bioweapons that spread through a highly contagious virus could thus be, in principle, possible." Christian's observations regarding what's possible are chilling. The realities of Rice University researchers already having hacked into fruit fly brains and commanding their wings via remote control as previously described, perhaps more so. While chemical warfare has largely been banned on the international level, gaps in legislation and enforcement leave room for possibilities of different types of chemical attacks or manipulations that target the brain. In this respect, Christian posits that biochemical calmatives and maldorants could incapacitate populations on a mass scale, or oxycontin could otherwise make them docile, subduing them for an enemy benefit. Ultimately, as academics Hai Jin, Li Junhu, and Jinghua Wang posit in the Chinese Journal of Traumatology, putting the brain front and center as a military target that can be injured, interfere with, or enhanced could establish a whole new grand, land, sea, space, and sky global combat mode. As I will show, this emerging brain, land, sea, space, and sky global combat mode appears poised to change how conflicts between nation states are realized and fought entirely. As the world endures major wars in Ukraine and now the Middle East, with Israel's ongoing destruction of Gaza, neurowarfare is also on the horizon. Indeed, the technologies outlined in the previous section appear slated to transform geopolitical relations as both hard and soft power tools, which could then be used to manipulate populations, lifestyles, worldviews, and even cognitive abilities to make them pliable to someone else's will. Of course, various soft power tactics have long worked to influence the mind, political allegiances, and socio-economic realities of civilians in hostile territories. The U.S., for example, has often extensive propaganda campaigns as part of its color revolutionary efforts for regime change in countries and governments deemed inconvenient to American geopolitical goals. Yet neuroweapons, if used on a broad scale, seem positioned to take things to another level. As Georgetown University neurology and biochemistry professor and director of the Potomac Institute for Policy Studies, Dr. James Giordano, explains in a 2020 article entitled Redefining Neuroweapons, Emerging Capabilities in Neuroscience and Neurotech. Neuro-based advancements could theoretically be used to exercise social economic power elsewhere or otherwise disrupt societies in ways that do not involve explicit military action. Shockingly, he mentions that these disruptions could theoretically be done through the denigration of hostile groups, cognitive or emotional states. Indeed, neurotech can be employed as both soft and hard weapons in competition with adversaries. In the former sense, neurotech research and development can be utilized to exercise social economic power in global markets, while in the latter sense, neurotech can be employed to augment friendly forces' capabilities or to denigrate cognitive, emotive, and or behavioral abilities of hostiles, right? So, as Giordano elaborates in another article, the destructive capabilities of neuroweaponry make them especially valuable in non-kinetic engagements because they can put the perpetrators at a strategic advantage, where kinetic response to non-kinetic neuroweaponry, however profound, may appear too aggressive. In this context, kinetic engagements can be best described as overt or hot military engagements, where active and sometimes lethal force is used. Conversely, non-kinetic engagements refer to more covert strategies and activities to counter an enemy, including within the diplomatic, digital, economics, and perhaps now the neurosphere. Giordano goes on to say that in a recipient of neurowarfare does not sufficiently respond to attack, the neuroweapon's disruptive influence and its possible strategically destructive effect become increasingly manifest. In other words, neurowarfare seems positioned to drive nation-states' geopolitical strategies and how geopolitical tensions fester or explode in the future. As Giordano has implied via his reference to socio-economic power, it appears non-kinetic neurowarfare seems likely to impact not only soldiers and military outcomes, but also civilians and the societies they live in, especially as states initiate hostility. As a 2020 NATO-sponsored study in why cognitive warfare matters, future conflicts will likely occur amongst the people digitally first and physically thereafter in proximity to hubs of political and economic power. We've seen that before. Namely, as Christian notes in a 2016 article, it seems possible that neurowarfare could even manipulate political leaders and populations to suppress their free will, enabling perpetrators to assert their political will on entire populations without resorting to kinetic responses. Here, a variety of tools, especially those described earlier, could be used in tandem to disorient, placate, or devastate the masses on a large scale. Christian writes, in a defensive function, neurowarfare may use to suppress conflicts before they can break out. Occupied populations could be more easily pacified. Palmatives could be put in the drinking water, where populations could be sprayed with oxytocin to make them more trusting. Potential terrorists may be detected using brain scans and then chemically or otherwise neutered. This obviously creates the possibility of creating a system of high-tech repression, where, in the words of writer Aldous Huxley, a method of control could be established by which a people can be made to enjoy a state of affairs by which any decent standard they ought not to enjoy. Like the Matrix. As Christian mentions, aptly bringing Aldous Huxley's Brave New World prescription for the future in the conversation, current circumstances have set the stage for possible manipulation and top-down, high-tech repression at all levels, making it difficult for those experiencing it to even understand their previous freedoms have been stripped from them. Indeed, Christian explains that neurowarfare could transform hostile societies, cultures, and values, even collapse them based on the motions these technologies could induce. Offensive neurowarfare would be aimed at manipulating the political and social situation in another state. It could have social values, culture, popular beliefs, and collective behaviors of change or political directions, for example, by way of regime change through democratizing other societies. However, offensive neurowarfare could also mean collapsing adversarial states by creating conditions of lawlessness, insurrection, and revolution. For example, by inducing fear, confusion, or anger, adversarial states could be destabilized using advanced technologies of subversion, sabotage, environmental modification, and gray terrorism, followed by a direct military attack. As a result, the adversarial state would not have the capacity to resist the policies of a covert aggressor. Ultimately, as per the circumstances described by defense and neuroscience tech analysts and academics in space, neuroweapons could become an unprecedented new driver of soft power, where minds are a target of influence in ways that were previously unimaginable. Subsequently, in kinetic exchanges, minds could become targets to denigrate or destroy in the world of neurowarfare. However, increasingly, as it seems that the line between kinetic and non-kinetic is becoming blurred, as war moves to target not just physical reality, but humans' internal reality through the brain. As emerging neurotech increasingly jeopardize the mind's sanctity in the outside of wartime conditions, some are calling for the protection of the brain through neuro rights. Groups like Columbia University's Neuro Rights Foundation, whose stated goal is to protect the human rights of all people from the potential misuse or abuse of neurotechnology, have sprouted to advocate for the matter, and neuro rights policy discussions are ongoing in high places like the EU and the United Nations Human Rights Council. Chile, meanwhile, has been praised by groups like UNESCO for its legislative efforts in the area, which have included adding brain-related rights to the country's constitution. Neuro rights have been depicted in the media as protections that ensure emerging neurotechs are only used for altruistic purposes. However, a closer look at neuro rights initiatives and adjacent legislation suggests many of these pushing for neuro rights are in fact facilitating the emerging text normalization within the consumer market and everyday life through the creation of legislative frameworks. This opens up possibilities for what Unlimited Hangout contributing editor Whitney Webb describes as neuro markets. Indeed, those backing neuro rights efforts deserve scrutiny for their close proximity to the very defense industry and adjacent institutions proliferating the controversial neurotech we've described earlier. For instance, Dr. Raphael Youst, who heads Columbia University's Neuro Rights Foundation and University Kavli Institute, helped pitch the now heavily DARPA-influenced and funded BRAIN initiative to the U.S. government. He is also the coordinator of the BRAIN Initiative, 650 international centers, and participated in projects like those I outlined in this article earlier. Through research in genetic engineering on mice, for example, Dr. Youst has helped pioneer technology that can read and write to the brain with unprecedented precision, where he can even make the mice see things that aren't there. Despite the use proximity to the very orgs researching and promoting questionable neurotechs, right, he's one of the primary actors behind Chile's neuro rights legislation. Indeed, the legislation appears less revolutionary within the context of Chile's legacy as a testing ground for neoliberal policy-making efforts created abroad. What's more, legal scholars have argued neuro rights, as proposed, are inherently flawed from a legal standpoint. Jan Christoph Public's writing that the neuro rights proposal is tainted by neuro-exceptionalism and neuro-essentialism and lacks grounding in relevant scholarship. Alejandro Zuniga Facuri, Luis Villavicencio, Miranda, Daniel Zaro Morales, and Ricardo Salas Venegas argue that the neuro rights concept is legally redundant and is based on an outdated Cartesian reductionist philosophy thesis, which advocates the need to create new rights in order to shield a specific part of the human body, the brain. Whenever the legal system is debatable, still it's odd that neuro rights legislative proposals are being pushed around the world, despite being apparently unable to withstand scrutiny from legal scholars. Indeed, neuro rights legislation is under construction in a number of countries, especially in Latin America, apparently in a manner reminiscent of many recent top-down global policy initiatives that have come to pass in previous years. right? Like the coronavirus one. In any case, neurotechs like BCIs and the normalization of the consumer level could pose a myriad of ethical problems. For example, DARPA's augmented cognition efforts to soup up warfighters' brains, as described earlier in the article, it brought to the consumer market could quickly wreak havoc and perhaps even create cognitive inequities if inaccessible to most. As Dr. Youth himself told the New York Times, certain groups will get this tech and will enhance themselves. This is a really serious threat to humanity. That's the New York Times saying that. To address this alleged problem of accessibility, one of the neural rights proposals crafted by Youst and the Morningside Group of scientists, which after being called together by Youst, has worked to identify priorities they consider neural rights, is the right to fair access to mental augmentation. But it's not hard to imagine neural rights legislation facilitating a number of dystopian scenarios. The very availability of such tech be well put economic or social pressure. Where are they at? Social pressure. Such tech may social pressure on the general population to receive or use it, perhaps in the form of state-subsidized BCIs, even state-mandated BCIs for some professions or groups of people. What does that sound like, Collin? Didn't you had to have stuff mandated to you, right? So even those in wealthier countries could cognitively augment themselves in ways unavailable in poor countries. It seems unlikely, after all, that truly equal access to cognitive augmentation could be facilitated internationally, bringing in new, untold advantages with global geopolitical impacts. In any case, it's curious that equitable access to cognitive augmentation is being legislated upon through neural rights initiatives without substantive debate as to whether such augmentation should be allowed in the first place or is even safe. Ultimately, rather than protect people from the possible ethical harms of emerging neurotech, neural rights legislation ultimately appears poised, normalize and facilitate the arrival of the brain chips and other advanced and often dystopian neurotechs discussed in the investigation into daily life. Although ongoing strikes to enhance and in turn degrade or destroy warfighter capabilities on the battlefield through tools like BCIs and other implantables, neuropharmacologies, needs and efforts to augment cognition may well transform the nature of warfare, kinetic or otherwise, as militaries put the brain front and center in conflict. How does a way to sidestep the possible ramifications of these technologies, neural rights, which have been proposed by persons closely affiliated with the orgs creating the tech in the first place, ultimately appears to be about normalizing the tech and introducing it, integrating it within the public sphere. So, I think I'm going to pause there. And let people go finish that article, because I think it's just closing up. So, thoughts, Care Bear? Lot to take in.
Yeah. But again, I will admit this. Well, let me ask you this, because you wanted to talk about this.
Yeah.
Why?
Well, I think part of it is that I think we're already seeing a lot of this information war, right? And people don't know why or how it's working, right? You know, Whitney Webb talked about this extensively with the digital front, right? And how they're manipulating that. But there's a Star Trek episode in, I think, Deep Space Nine, right? Where one of the characters is found out to have had genetic, like enhancements, right? But that was illegal in the Federation, right? To do. Because it essentially puts you above someone else. Right? It's essentially performance-enhancing drugs for life. Right? So, I think with these brain chips, they talked about that, right? Where there's going to be, essentially that will be by, can you afford them or not? Right? So someone could theoretically just think better than you know, with a brain chip. Or vice versa. You know? So, that's part of this too. So, you know, And I definitely think you're going to start seeing that on the battlefield for sure. So, and be
I'm
careful
also
with...
just kind of wondering what our audience, like, why did you think it was important for them to at least know about this?
Well, I think for stuff like mandates and things like that, you know, to be leery of some of this coming down the road, you know? So, especially as we're going to start to see legislation, I'm sure, you know? But that's why I brought it. So, but, you know, this is talking about things. This is why we're demonetized. So, you can always go to ko-fi.com/DBNewsNetwork. Give us a little donation there. Scan the QR code on your screen. Put !donate in chat. Leave us a little super chat. But if you can't do that, just like and subscribe. Do the easy things to do. Share, comment, you know, give us a little bit of engagement. We so thankfully need. But
Who are these people?
We've talked about stuff like this or relation to this before, although your your image looks like a Voltron lion or a Power Rangers Zord. Which is it?
I mean, it's a Robo-Dog. So here's a story by Caitlin Johnstone about, you know, terrors beyond our comprehension. You know, so lovely technology does things for us. So we're going to get into it, but you know, Robo-Dog, I don't know. I don't know if Voltron has something this is like definitely the evil Voltron thing. Like, was there an evil Voltron? Like, I feel like Power Rangers had an evil Megazord, but
oh sure, yeah, I'm not sure about Voltron though, but yeah, either way, it looks like a lion from Voltron to me. So is that what the AI came with when you put in Robo-Dog?
Yes, I had trouble trying to get it to, but I got here and was like, perfect, that will work. So this is what they actually look like, right? So
right.
Caitlin Johnstone writes, they're experimenting with military robots in Gaza now, right? This is March 4th, not too long ago. So I love how she's just like, yep, that's what they're doing. I don't know how else to, that's, you know. So she continues, Haaretz has a new article out titled Gaza becomes Israel's testing ground for military robots, which reports that in an effort to avoid harming soldiers and dogs, the IDF has been experimenting with the use of robots and remote-controlled dogs in the Gaza war.
Oh, so God forbid that we actually kill our own. So we're just going to send mechanical robots of dog and probably humans at some point to do our dirty work for us. Okay.
Yep. One of the most horrifying facts about the dystopia we live in is that large-scale military operations are routinely used as testing grounds for new war machinery, using human bodies as guinea pigs for experimentation in what amounts to giant blood-soaked field laboratories, all to benefit the strategic objectives of empire managers and the profit margins of the military-industrial complex. So, K-Bear, you want to see what one of these is capable of? I know you do.
Sure.
This is like the bottom of what it's capable of. So let's this is a nice
shout
little
out to Hotspot and shout out to Crab.
EOTech Red Dot.
Yeah.
But
shout out to Crab for giving this to us via Hotspot.
Yep, very useful.
Okay. First of all, it doesn't even. The gait is not even like a dog. It's like a deer or something.
Yeah, it's
like
the reverse knee.
Right.
You know?
Also, it looks fake. It
Yep.
looks so fake. It
It's
looks
real,
like
though.
AI, like CGI. But
Yep.
oh my god.
And this is just Collin. This was like I know this footage is old because I remember
Right.
seeing it then. These have gotten better, right? Also, this is just M16 on here.
Right.
It's just a rifle.
Right.
I don't know. Put an RPG on it. Put
Yeah. Straight up cannon.
Minigun. Right. Like and the only thing it needs to do is be able to sit in place and fire something.
Right.
And this can go, just about into any building. I know they have little arms for them to grab door handles and stuff like that.
Oh god.
Right. So, or other things. But yeah, also, how well can it aim? It has robotic aim.
Right.
So, it could theoretically make shots that humans couldn't.
Right.
So, yeah, like a little 40 mil grenade launcher right into your living room from the Robo-Dog. So just super fun things. And we've covered loads of this kind of stuff before, so it's nothing new to us, but
no.
Which we've covered. Haaretz has a new article out titled Gaza becomes Israel's testing ground for military robots, which reports that in an effort to avoid harming soldiers. We read that. So the news comes out at the same time as a new public citizen report, which I think you covered. We covered one of these. Warning of the likely imminent arrival of autonomous weapon systems, which will kill people with minimal instruction from human pilots. Saying the most serious worrying involving autonomous weapons is that they inherently dehumanize the people targeted and make it easier to tolerate widespread killing, including in violation of international human rights law. So,
right. Yeah. Think about it. Like, yeah, like this is the swerve. Like, oh, it's not like, and this I can see Israel being like, well, it's not humans that's killing it, it's robots.
Technical difficulties.
Right.
So they have had, Collin, we've covered it on How Do We Miss That. They have facial targeted AI selected rifle aiming systems at checkpoints in Gaza.
Right.
Right. They have, between Thales and Elbit and loads of these companies, they are more than willing to try and, try their new wares. So we know they've been using AI targeting systems for bombs. We know that's a thing. In fact, one of the people speaking at the Daniel Hale thing, the Aaron Bushnell thing not that long ago, was talking about, the Air Force has things to see in every building ever. They know exactly what they're bombing.
Right.
So.
And speaking of Elbit, we've covered them, and then we had guests, from the Charleston protest, who mentioned this, as well, Tamara and I forgot the guy's name. Sorry. They mentioned about Elbit as well, and I think I sent this to you via Mint Press News. I think on Monday that the UK has awarded Elbit with a new contract.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's like we talked about Thales before too, and Paradise bombed, right? They were ones doing that along with suppliers from China. So the more normalized robots become with the world's militaries, the closer we come to the point, and steps are already being taken in that direction. As Common Dreams Thor Benson notes in an article about the Public Citizen Report, Israel has purchased and at times deployed self-piloting lethal drones. Back in January, Caitlin wrote that Gaza is a live laboratory for the military-industrial complex, saying data is with absolute certainty being collected on all the newer weapons being field tested on human bodies in Gaza, just like has been happening in Ukraine, to be used to benefit the war machine and arms industry. What sparked this comment at the time was reports and first-hand witness accounts we'd seen coming out the prolific use of IDF sniper drones in Gaza since October, with Israeli forces frequently shooting Palestinians with quad drones armed with rifles. Copious records are most assuredly being compiled on the effectiveness of these newer weapons and tactics in ending human lives, which will then be used to help market those weapons to other states and to improve their efficiency in killing. So I wanted to shout this guy out. So this was a Google engineer, and with these newfound technologies, you know, you might get people willing to not be for that. So did you watch this yet, Care Bear? Did you see this?
No.
I'm a Google Cloud software engineer, and I refuse to build technology that powers genocide, apartheid, or surveillance. Project Nimbus puts Palestinian community members in danger. I refuse to build technology that's going to be used for cloud apartheid. No cloud for apartheid. No tech for apartheid. Free Palestine.
Going to be resilient and keep on.
Google is complicit in this
Wow.
Yeah. Remember, Google used to have a thing on their book saying, "Don't be evil." They took that out. The joke writes itself. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, so, yeah. So Caitlin continues. When I say this is most assuredly happening, I am not being hyperbolic for effect. Author and journalist Anthony Lowenstein gave a lengthy interview on the Chris Hedges report back in December about Israel's long and extensively documented history. We linked this article in the chat below. If you want to actually go watch this interview, it's linked in that article. Of using Gaza as a testing ground for new weapons, spyware, surveillance, and security systems, AI drones, and tactics, which has profited scores of corporations and enabled Israel to become a player of outside success in the global weapons industry. Israel's drones surveillance technology, including spyware, facial recognition software, biometric gathering infrastructure, along with smart fences, experimental bombs, and AI-controlled machine guns, are all tried out on the captive population in Gaza, often with lethal results, says Hedges in introduction. These weapons and technologies are then certified as battle-tested and sold around the world. This doesn't only happen in Gaza. This past September, the Wall Street Journal published an article titled, "The War in Ukraine is also a giant arms fair," subtitled, "Arms makers are getting orders for weapons being put to the test on the battlefield." In January of last year, CNN published a report titled, "How Ukraine Became a Test Bed for Western Weapons and Battlefield Innovation," with one source saying that Ukraine is absolutely a weapons lab in every sense because none of this equipment has ever actually been used in a war between two industrially developed nations. Okay. And of course, we are also seeing the same phenomenon, and guess where, Care Bear?
Africa.
In 2021, Mint Press News published a report by Scott Timke titled, "West Africa is the latest testing ground for U.S. military artificial intelligence." About this very same trend in 2020, Libya saw what is believed to have been the first time a human has ever been killed by a fully automated drone attack. Look at that, Care Bear. Black people being the first to do something again. Damn. That is killed without the machine having been told to do so by a human. Yay.
Congratulations!
The other day, we discussed how the Empire's great weakness is that it depends on normal human beings to carry out its orders and turn the gears of the machine. If you look at the facts and think about them for a moment, it's not hard to see how the Empire managers are hoping to overcome this weakness in the future. So, speaking of weaknesses, Care Bear, I can't let us have shitty future horrors without some possible ways to deal with them.
The battery.
So this is Wrangle Star, who is a weird Christian homesteader, but you know, he does things like this that are useful on occasion. So I'll let him tell you. Look, it's the robot dog. Look, we saw them earlier, right?
Battery and CPU are located approximately right here. The limb articulators are located at the top of the 4 limbs. I would recommend 62 grain green tip penetrators because they will be armor plated. If you don't have access to that, paintball will be effective in disabling the cameras. However, it's easily reversible. Another option will be to do a mix, 50-50 mix of old engine oil, oil-based paint, black, and a good dose of sand into a balloon. The sand will scratch up and gum up the works, and the paint will be very difficult to remove. Act accordingly.
I mean, just some, you know, homeowner hacks. Okay, bro. So, you know. But yeah. So thoughts?
We're in Skynet.
Yeah, it's already here, baby.
It's already here.
You know?
I mean, we've talked about Robo-Dogs, AI drone, like, you know,
Time to
it
start
still
making
feels
your
very
own.
much right.
That's how
but
John
it's
Connor
still,
beat Terminator. He got a Terminator to use against the Terminators. That's
right.
That's how he did that.
But I think the most significant thing again is how will this, you know, in terms of international law, like
Mhm.
how will this affect, you know, any ruling moving forward, especially given that tech, you can make it, as you said, the technicality. Oh, it wasn't a human that killed this person. It was a robot that killed the person. You know, obviously the robot had to be controlled by its said human in
And
order to
programmed
do it.
with very particular.
To do it.
Yep.
But Caitlin brought up a good point as far as the law. I'm sure international law, when it comes to, you know, stuff like this, it's going to take a while for them to catch up to this idea.
Mhm.
But can you imagine the carnage that can happen in between all of that, for that to kind of take effect? And I can't imagine that's not going to happen anytime soon. I'm sure not within the next decade or so, depending, you know, how well the technology is with these robots.
This is the problem
and
with
then
technology. It's always exploited by the capitalist in power for war and for nefarious means. You know, this could be used for all sorts of actual beneficial things for humans, right? Like, you know, it's not. It's being used to murder our fellow man, you know.
Right. And I sent a tweet out earlier today. I sent a tweet out earlier today in regards to another issue, but it relates to this. You know, like, I basically said what happens on the federal level in terms of how our parties handle their business will eventually kind of trickle down on a local level. And I made the example,
cops will definitely be using this shit.
Exactly. But I made the example earlier today that so just more local news for me, that DC, my DC council just passed a policing bill that essentially gives police more power and less accountability in terms of how they handle, you know, make arrests and all this kind of stuff. So I made the argument that this is in a lot of ways a result of Biden militarizing funding the police more. It's given our local governments, especially, you know, like ones if populations that have a large concentration of people of color, most notably, I think in my case, Black people, how you know, Biden has basically put out there or has funded the police, at least on the federal level, more. That has translated to people, you know, politicians on the local level wanting to push for, especially now with an uptick in crime, in many major cities. The push now is, obviously more cops, and not just more cops, being able to give them more toys or more power in order to, oppress the working class even more. So yeah, I mean, there was, I think, a famous tweet on this of like a Robo-Dog walking in New York City, I think maybe a year or so ago. But yeah, this is going to become more commonplace. Like you're not going to see Robo-Dog necessarily roaming around like in a rich neighborhood. I can maybe, but I can see it more likely, in a low income neighborhood, especially for cops who may be afraid to kind of enter into said low income neighborhoods. Just send in the dogs to do your dirty work.
I mean, send them to places where humans can't go, nuclear silos, that kind of stuff, but here is
right.
just...
But it just shows like we're willing to spend more money for the tech to oppress people rather than give more money, and I made the argument in terms of crime, you're more willing to arm cops and give them the toys versus giving people money that will possibly do more and lessen crime. That's an issue for you, but you're willing to do that for the cops.
Blood money gets a return on investment here in the States. So, as they are more than willing to tell you, especially with, did you see that? Where they've been arguing that the money to Ukraine and Palestine and Gaza are like coming back to us. That's all American weapons contractors, and it's jobs for us and whatever. Like they're trying to make it's a good thing. So, but yeah. Speaking of money, YouTube won't give us any, so we had to go elsewhere. You can go to code-fee.com/Indie News Network or scan the QR code on your screen, or if you're in the chat, hit !donate and it'll send you a link. You might get something fun come up on screen. I don't know how these things work, but we have goals.
You do. We want people to test it. We want people to test it. So
yeah, put a little cash in there, see what happens. But yeah, you can also not forget to like and subscribe. Please share. We're heavily suppressed, and every little bit helps, especially to get this number to go up. More people subscribe. We'd like to get to 2K pretty soon. It would be very useful. So appreciate all the people that are already subscribed.
Who are these people?
We're going to talk about the most horrifying expo that is probably happening that you're probably not aware of. Right down there. Can you read that? Is that possible to read, Indy? That little badge right there?
Street Smarts VR Corporation.
That's it. We'll get to them. So I want everyone to hold that in their heads. So this is out of Declassified UK. Matt Broomfield. I've not read much of him, but we're gonna give it a shot. But he writes, Inter London's Counter-Terror Expo, a hotbed of pro-Israel paranoia. The security industry is cashing in on Palestinian protests. Who would have thought they would like to quell any and all protests? It's funny how that works. July 1st. How long ago was that? A minute. That's how long y'all missed this. July 1st. This is all y'all.
No, I saw this.
Y'all missed this.
No, I saw this because I get I'm subscribed to I'm subscribed because I'm a crazy person. I'm subscribed to Declassified UK newsletter, which everybody should be, by the way. Go to declassifieduk.com, I believe, or .org, and you'll look them up. But all the links will be in the description. And subscribe and get their email newsletter so that you're not 3 weeks behind next time. But yeah, let's do this.
Declassified is one of these, right? Pretty sure.
They are. And yes, a founding
$10
cash out from Anna. Thank you. Yes, OG.
Appreciate you, Anna.
One of the original 17 outlets. Thank you, Anna.
So, Britain's largest gathering of counterterrorism experts assembled in London last month to discuss what one police chief called legal but harmful protest. Following Israel's war on Gaza, inside a cavernous Docklands conference hall, companies at the Counter-Terror Expo displayed gas mask-clad dummies and crowd control systems as enthusiastic AI reps promised revolutionary advances in surveillance. Tools for hacking phones with brute force, monitoring someone's emotional state based on their social media, and rapidly digesting the contents of an acquired computer were all up for sale. Among the potential customers were foreign policy departments, including officers fresh from Georgia's violent crackdown on anti-Russian protests. Several
foreign police departments. Wait, stop. Foreign police departents. Not foreign policy, but foreign police departments. So they're entertaining.
Same difference.
Yeah. Well,
I feel you.
Well,
but yes, but P words. Put a little poppy P words. Sorry, I skipped over that.
No, foreign policy, something we talk about a lot, so I can understand. But go ahead. That changes the context a little bit.
Several salespeople declined to explain their products to the media. I can't believe they let you people in here. One rep told Declassified after seeing our press card. I think it's disgusting, he says. Which is just hilarious. So, her company markets AI tools for military and law enforcement to process recordings of people's voices. When delegates weren't browsing spyware or sipping craft beer with a 12-pound world food meal deal, they could listen to the security industry's leading lights. These included Detective Chief Superintendent Maria Lovegrove, who runs Britain's Prevent strategy against radicalization. She trumpeted 53 arrests for terrorism offenses since October 7th. Only one of these was for violence. The rest concerned social media posts or attending gatherings. So, thought police. Sounds like.
Yeah.
So, asked whether this data suggests police are overreacting to peaceful Palestine protests, Lovegrove valorized an early intervention approach. She told Declassified this was the greatest tool in preventing terror attacks and insisted officers only arrest and prosecute when we have to. Among those arrests were 3 women found guilty for wearing paraglider stickers at a protest. Oh my God. Paragliders, so scurry. Dom Murphy, the Met's counterterrorism commander, told delegates he was monitoring legal but harmful. What is that, Indy? Legal but harmful.
Not illegal, but harmful.
But against our narrative, very much so. Protests and the risks of low sophistication attacks by people radicalized online or at university since October 7th. Just very unsophisticated. Yes. Unsophisticated. Terrible.
Wait, they're legal, but they're still harmful, right? And that's what he's saying. Peaceful, but still harmful. So harmful to your narrative.
Yes. Yeah, but
Okay.
harmful enough that we'll make it illegal and arrest you for it. So we're going to get to that. If there are 100,000 people at a protest and one person holding a Hamas flag, we will find them and we will kill them. We have a certain set of skills. Sorry.
No.
We will find them and arrest them. Murphy reassured attendees. A majority of recent arrests targeted individuals aged under 17. He boasted as proof that the early intervention approach was working. It always
sure.
Get them young, get them while they're young. You know,
more jails, less schools. More jails, less schools. Right? Isn't that the no?
Yep. It's very much things. It's very much things.
The worst.
Anyway, breaking British Gestapo thugs have arrested 10 members of Youth Demand for planning to participate in peaceful protests using draconian new powers, allowing for preemptive action against individuals believed to be planning significant disruption. Kid Clarenberg, as we know. So here's the video. We're gonna pull this up. Have you seen this? Do you see this online yet?
I don't know if I have.
Okay, well, we're going to go for a ride then. And action.
At the moment, because the intel's delayed and you guys are going to disrupt things.
So it's a little hard to read. So right at the moment, because there's intel today, you guys are going to disrupt things as part of youth demand. You are all going to be arrested for conspiracy to cause public nuisance. The officers here are going to come towards you now and do that, and then explain to you a bit more. You can film, that's fine. Until you're released, come forward. This is conspiring to cause a threat.
How is this more harmful than the people arming Israel?
Another location where the same thing happens.
Okay. Guide them where they're going, they don't want to fall over.
Well, they're being very polite and gentle in their handling of the protesters, I have to say.
Very dangerous criminals.
I don't think U.S. cops are behaving quite that way with protesters.
No.
Holy shit!
Not at all.
That's like, did he give him a little massage afterwards?
It is almost like, excuse me, sir, we have to arrest you now. You know, like,
I'm so sorry, old boy.
Mom, I'm sorry.
So,
oh man.
Another panelist praised Britain's ability to preemptively arrest people for public order offenses at demonstrations and target them for terror offenses further down the line. Craig McCann, former senior prevent officer, expressed the mood in the room when he described ceasefire marches as a permissive environment for the transfer of extremist ideology. Like other speakers,
Can we flip back to it?
What? Oh,
Can
yeah.
we flip back?
That would help.
Thanks, fam.
Like other speakers, he sought to delegitimize opponents of Israel's war on Gaza by characterizing pro-Palestinian protests as an Islamist camp conflating with far-right anti-Semitism. They're antiseptic. Indeed, that's
Everybody's antiseptic.
Yep. So McCain explicitly linked Palestinian nationalism with Nazism and Israel's propaganda point. Fellow panelists claimed parts of London were a no-go zone for Jews. Discussing threats from street protests all the way through to terrorism, the conference presented far-left, far-right, Islamist, and environmentalist ideologies as equal interrelated threats to British society. This worldview echoes a recent report on political violence by UK government advisor Lord Walney. The unelected peer, better known as John Woodcock, has deep links to the Israel lobby and arms industry, sparking allegations of bias.
Hey, it's Britain. Phrasing. It's pretty funny how they're spinning it. Yes, thank you. How they're spinning it that far left, far right, Islamist and environmentalist ideologies are all the same.
Yeah, very much.
Because I can clearly see that far right ideology is equally as violent as Extinction Rebellion, for example, right? Okay.
Well, discussing threats from street protests, we read that. So the worldview echoes a recent report on political violence by John Woodcock. After lunch, discussion turned to British values and protecting England from the menace of social media and foreign flags that vexed thousands of officers under Murphy's command. So
vexed. I love it.
So remember at the beginning, the photo at the beginning of this, right? Was that guy with the badge, right? Remember Street Smarts VR? That was on there. I told everyone to remember. So I want people to take a look at what kind of things are actually being showed at this expo. And it was very hard to find video footage of anything actually happening at this expo. I'm sure there's a load of terrible stuff. But this one I could find. So we're going to take this, and I'm also going to put this on it just in case. Fair use. Should be fair use. We're going to comment on this and make color commentary and all that stuff. So definitely usable. So that's look at this nonsense.
So Street Smarts VR is a virtual simulation training platform for law enforcement and first responders.
We expect our first responders to go out and put their lives on the line. We can provide the best training that technology allows. Developed in partnership with law enforcement and the military by a veteran and former first responder, Street Smarts VR is based on real-life situations. Using body cam footage and advanced motion capture technology, we create realistic training scenarios for any circumstance.
Still going to need to see your license and registration. Sir, I need to see your base ID before I can let you go. What now? He's got a knife!
Our technology lets instructors control scenarios with multiple branches at multiple points, creating dynamic situations to test officer response.
Oh my god! Oh my god!
Hey, drop it! Drop it right now! Drop it!
Instructors can then replay a scenario, examining different camera angles, perspectives, and threat distances.
I'm going to imagine a murder 75 different ways.
And evaluations to unit-wide behavior, scenario preference, and
holy
training
shit!
times.
Yeah, dude.
Street Smarts VR
This also reminds me of like
with unlimited usage. Agencies of
hang on
any
a second.
size can get a future-proof,
This also reminds me of like
and efficient training
you ever see
package
like
that includes regular updates, 24/7 customer support, and no hidden fees.
You ever see like the Chinese videos?
Yes. Yes.
When they
I know what you mean. Like
when
the
they
safety
recreate yes. Or even the ones where like the news are trying to recreate what happened to Tiger Woods.
I think that would be beneficial for any agency.
The future of training is here.
You turned it down. Okay.
Yeah, I did.
Dude.
What training right there.
The hell? Oh my god. There's nightmare fuel for you. So, you know, it's kind of funny. In my professional life, in my other life, I attend trade shows occasionally, a couple times a year. And yeah, this is holy crap. You walk up to booths and it's ways to spy and annoy and and destabilize people. Sure.
Do you think the VR has like a old lady with a pot of water scenario, or you know, just to be super relevant?
Oh my
anyway.
Or a guy on a roof.
Possible. Well, slope roof. Many felt the next generation tech on display would ensure ever more effective crackdowns on street protest and dissent. If nothing else, the gadgets give a golden parachute to retired police. It seemed mandatory for every other stall to boast a former cop now paddling AI image detection software on the basis of their years in the force. McCann was among many to have traded in his warrant card for a job in the security industry. He's now a director of Spectrum, strategic preventive expertise to counter terrorism risks using upstream measures, as opposed to downstream.
Of course.
Absent from the Expo,
of course,
real reflection on how on the terror Israel inflicts on Palestinians, nor how austerity or foreign policy can lead more young people down the path of violence. Ida Kayako, the name?
You got me?
I don't know what those those are those weird vowels. Yeah, those are those weird vowels. Gonna have to learn those. So
Kaiko.
Anyway.
Hey.
Royal Holloway University, who attended the Expo, later told Declassified that Palestinian activists were being targeted by draconian legislation, which stands in stark contrast with the supposed British values of freedom of expression and democracy. I didn't think that it had that much of those values, but myself, personally, mainly colonialism. But she accuses the British authorities of using counterterrorism to repress protests, which are inconvenient to the government and its diplomatic relationships. In this case, particularly those with the U.S. and Israel. So fun. The conference venue, Excel, is owned by the UAE. The Gulf state is
of course
ally, despite its significant support for brutal militias in Yemen and Sudan that have fueled unrest in the region. There was a little
so wait, they own a conference center?
Yes, in Britain. Yeah. God forbid.
Nice.
Not that there's anything wrong with that. There was little acknowledgement that Israel's invasion of Gaza has killed over 38,000 Palestinians, and left the country's leadership under investigations for war crimes and genocide at international courts. We're going to get to some of those later tonight. The Met's War Crimes Teams, which falls under Murphy's Counterterror Command, has itself received complaints about Israel's conduct, which he is meant to investigate. Yet Murphy reassured attendees this was only taking place as a legal requirement since Palestine activists had filed former police complaints rather than at the Met's own behest. Flaws in the Prevent scheme were not up for discussion, despite its repeated failures to identify terrorists and tendencies to alienate vulnerable communities. Critics say it encourages doctors, social workers, and teachers to report young people to police, often sowing mistrust with authority figures. You think? Like, what? Okay. One panel.
Yes, they want to turn everybody. Well, wait a minute. So that was like one of the things that Whitney Webb talked about a long time ago, was that they want to turn citizens into spies and get neighbors to turn neighbors in. That's one of the overall plans of the Agenda 2030 Great Reset, own nothing and we'll be happy type of narrative.
Social credit, and all that fun stuff.
And here we go with all the legal but non-lethal spying and non-aggression plus aggression tactics in order to get people to do what you want them to do and steer narrative. This is what we're talking about here. Nightmare fuel. Thanks.
Yep. You're welcome. One panelist did warn that the UK government had traded economic growth for social cohesion, leaving young people angry, frustrated, and shut out from mainstream politics. As the parole board's own legal director suggested, Britain's crumbling, short-staffed prisons remain hotbeds of Islamic radicalism. This could raise questions over the focus on charging and jailing young people for holding signs at protests or posting on Facebook. But rather than advocating for more public spending to promote integration, police commanders seem to expect social services to take on ever more responsibility for tracking vulnerable youths. After all,
naturally,
why trust chief constables to actually address root causes when scaremongering around Palestine environmental activism is good for business in their next career? So,
and in their current career, by the way.
Yeah. Any closing thoughts?
Yeah, I don't think that we would allow a foreign country to own a conference center here in the United States. I don't know.
You don't like the CCP Expo Center? You don't? That's not.
Well, wait a minute, because then does that technically become like diplomatic immunity, where like they like anything can go there and it literally becomes the soil of that country, and they like. Yeah, that's a little bit problematic and an issue for sure. This whole weaponry AI stuff again, and the UK was cool with it. I mean, they sent I know foreign cops attending this. Okay, gross. Yep. Great work, great reporting by Mark Broomfield. Again, subscribe and support Declassified UK and independent media. Because where else are you hearing a story like this?
A new world order awaits.
Future's terrifying, and I'm not ready for it. But, talking about these things is most likely why we're demonetized. So if you want to get around that system, you can go to co-v.com/Indie News Network, scan that QR code on your screen, or go to the description and find it there. But, if you can't give monetarily because you're one of the poors like ourselves, you could just, do all the engagement stuff, like, subscribe, share, comment, all the stuff every other channel asks you to do. So you know what? Don't do it. All right? Don't subscribe.
Wait, what? Wait, what?
Don't do it.
Stop.
It's not worth it.
Oh, come on, man.
These people,
I wanted to call attention to coping mechanisms and rebranding of the New World Order. Y'all have heard of the New World Order, yes? Just want to say New World Order as many times as I can.
New World Order.
Make sure this video gets pulled down so that you can't find it. We actually don't want you to see this. But this is from the Off Guardian. John Frame, which is a fancy name. But he wanted to showcase a little bit of like the psychology of this New World Order and how like an entire mass of people are coping with it. And it's very similar to how your story kind of talked about it, Crap. So he brings up Brandon Smith. All of these arguments are a coping mechanism for the public to deal with evidence they cannot otherwise refute, right? So he's citing an article, which we'll get to. Denial and disbelief to the earth-shattering events of the past 2 years might largely be a psychological coping mechanism for many people rather than an expression of political views or attitudes. But any psychology behind events of the past few years is the last thing the powers that be want people to think about. As a result, the absence of a psychological perspective on world events is stunning. The article, What is the Council for Inclusive Capitalism? And he cites a link, which we'll watch a thing in a second, by Brandon Smith, confronts this psychology as a coping mechanism of denial, protecting the edifice of an accepted belief system. So, and I think this was like on some like alt economic website. So he did talk about how like they're wanting secretly communism. Not John Frame, but this Brandon Smith. He's just missed the mark. It's actually still capitalism. That's why they say capitalism on it. Just it's inclusive now. They literally rebranded it inclusive capitalism. So you're probably wondering why I'm saying that an ism as an actual organization. It's because it is an organization. And here they are with the Vatican. Well, why are they with the Vatican, you might ask?
È necessario urgente un sistema economico giusto, affidabile e in grado di rispondere alle sfide più radicali che l'umanità e il pianeta si trovano ad affrontare.
We are answering Pope Francis's challenge to create more inclusive economies that spread the benefit of capitalism.
Inclusive capitalism. What is that?
Inclusive capital. I would love to know, Collin, what inclusive capitalism is. What do you think inclusive capitalism is? Is that an oxymoron? Like,
is it?
I feel like it has to be.
I feel, but my brain just hearing those like, I don't know. Like, my brain is like, this does not
broke
make
at that
sense,
sentence.
Exactly.
Did you notice who it was from? Like, look who's here.
Because really, the Vatican silently supported the Holocaust.
Yes.
In the 50s. So.
Yes. Among many a terrible thing the entire religion of Catholicism has done, let alone just the Vatican, you know?
Vatican loves Nazis.
Feel free to look up the Kids Crusade, you know?
Okay, I actually have to look this up now.
Okay, I'll let the video play a little bit.
To create more inclusive economies that spread the benefit of capitalism more equitably and allow individuals to realize their full potential.
Pause. Capitalism has lifted billions out of poverty. It says
billions.
Billions.
I wonder.
A majority of people around the world say that they think their families.
Global chairman and CEO of EY, Carmen DeCibio. I'm sure he's a good dude.
He seems like he has good intentions.
Yeah.
I trust him. I trust this guy.
Years. That's a scenario.
He doesn't wear a tie, so he can't be, you know.
Much.
wealth
Ford Foundation president.
few people.
If you make money, what's the point if you're not prepared to share it? If the people who help make that wealth for you can't live with dignity.
It's inclusive capitalism, though, and we have to recognize that starting from where we are to where we need to get to, we need to bring everyone along, and there will be adjustments that come with that.
We do need the private sector's ingenuity,
Right.
capital, technology, people,
Yeah.
their passion.
Yeah, Collin
Right,
got
that's what I'm
it.
saying. That's why that's kind of like my like. If you want inclusive capitalism, isn't like a roundabout way of saying socialism.
Communism, yeah, like, yep.
Well, I mean, you could see Fox News, and I mean, a lot of the right, like conservatives, have kind of like hijacked the disasters of capitalism and then just rebranded it as communism. Like I know plenty of boomers who will say like, "Oh, this is what's happening right now is pure communism."
Yeah.
When clearly we still live in the same system that we have since the 19.
Right. It's like you look at, yes, and who's telling you this? All the capitalists. Good. Glad we're like, literally this video is ridiculous.
Come to the party.
We want to operate in a sustainable way.
This could be a
when
parody
incentives
video.
are aligned across
It is.
generations, not just
It
across
is.
borders.
It's just a straight up
and the
parody.
main actors take a long-term perspective.
Aligning our innovation with the UN
Oh,
Sustainable
yes,
Development
DuPont.
and the priorities.
Yeah,
of
DuPont's never fucked up before.
both a business and sustainability.
Created napalm.
Two reasons I think why I'd say concrete commitments.
BP! Fucking BP!
Not to be underestimated. Really,
Oh.
is they can inspire.
I'm gonna throw out a couple book recommendations. Chris Hedges has a good word on like.
Do anyone remember Elon Musk meeting with the Pope not that long ago too?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like that had to be like you just across the room. There was like a camera, and then Musk turns in. He's like, "Well, what we need is inclusive capitalism."
Public commitments, they can help build trust.
Leaders in the business community can be a unifying force. They can be a source of opportunity. They can be a source of understanding. So
I
we
love
as
Merrick.
business
I-
leaders
it's
can
like-
fucking step up and solve many of
Then
these
do it.
economic problems.
I think business plays a very important role in resolving these challenges. I think businesses have to become, part of the solution through leadership by example and through leadership by incentives.
But we're not going.
Vision and purpose.
We are stewards of this.
Oh yeah, Rothschild.
Our duty.
Gotta have a. This is the second time she's gotten two things in this.
For future generations.
Double feature of Rothschild.
What an act! These people are some great actors.
Yes, a cardinal of the church. Woo! He totally hasn't overlooked some terrible stuff.
Whether ethical or just social guidance, so that this group that has taken up such a noble task.
Dingo says
of
this
making
video should at least come with a reach
for the good
around.
of humanity achieve its goal and land on target. So this is our vision. This is our purpose.
Look, the fact that different religions need to come together on all matters is just the crying need of the times in our world. Faith cannot be used to pull us apart. Faith is meant to bring us together. And the fact that I'm a...
When has it ever?
Ronald Reagan is laughing in his grave right now. He's having the time of his life.
Sikh and somebody else is a different religion, to me doesn't matter.
Our work is indeed about social justice, which is rooted.
Sure, yeah, the Ford Foundation, yeah.
Person deserves to live in a just society.
Capitalism is at the heart of innovation that creates higher standard of living.
Oh,
we know
God.
that's been working. Yet we also know we can do a lot better.
We need a new system focused
OECD.
on the well-being of people. It's a big challenge, but if it is done right, the benefits will be immense.
Speaking of the Holocaust,
It's not just an asset
Hitler
owner,
had
it's
a
not
picture
just
of
an
Henry
asset
Ford in
manager,
his office.
It's not just a CEO.
Yeah.
It's not just these boards
Yeah,
of
big
directors.
fan.
You have
to work collectively over the
I
long
think
term.
Ford Foundation is, yeah.
How else did they build those all that military equipment?
What
It was
I
Ford.
think capitalism has to stand for to be inclusive capital.
Bank of America.
Everybody have equal access
Yes!
to the opportunity.
We're getting all the big players.
Mobility.
The council is a terrific body.
This is the fucking, the capitalist Avengers.
To join and commit to concrete actions that not only affect and improve the communities in which we live, but affect the world community of which we're all a part of.
We believe we need more than 1,000 organizations on board, and only with this very purposeful collective action, we will see the systemic change across markets that will make capitalism truly inclusive.
We invite all businesses, large and small, and individuals to join us as stewards for inclusive capitalism by going to our website, agreeing the principles, and making your own commitments to inclusive capitalism.
Yeah.
Please join us.
Make sure to tweet
So what's
and
the capitalism
Instagram.
that we have right now?
It's not inclusive, right?
It's not inclusive.
So we have a
not
so we have
inclusive,
non-inclusive capitalism right now. Like, what's
Apparently,
the
we
difference?
just need to make capitalism inclusive, and that will solve
What the
all of our
fuck? What the fuck does that mean? What the
Alright.
fuck is inclusive?
I wish I could tell you.
So I pulled up their website.
Yes.
This is their,
I
guess, vision statement or whatever. Or
pop that in the chat somewhere, and I can.
Okay.
I can get it. Like somewhere, but yeah, like what? We had the lineup on that was incredible. By the way, we had like the Bank of America CEO, Ford Foundation CEO, Rothschilds,
yeah.
like the
They got the
OECD,
whole crew
like
the whole crew got together for this.
Mastercard,
They called each other
Mastercard.
up. They were like, "Hey guys, let's do inclusive capitalism."
Also, let's look at how inclusive that capitalism was. I saw a lot of pale skin pigments. I don't know about you. You know,
I noticed that, but
there
I
was
didn't
definitely
see
a couple.
I didn't see anyone that looked working class to me.
No,
Yeah,
other than in the B-roll, they had it in the B-roll, like the
For
stuff
a
they
video
used from
about
Getty
working class
Images.
people, you would think they
Like-
would not include like giant rich bankers in that.
Right.
But
You put it in the chat. There we go. I see it.
I mean, if they mean inclusive as far as having more melanin within their network, then they got it.
Like they had a cardinal and like
They
this
got it.
guy, and like, you know, they got the
you're right,
Asians
yep.
to represent. You know, they got the what do they call them? Like what's the new word for it's like child appreciator. What's the PC term for the pedos now? They found one of those, you know.
that's one of the worst parts. of
Minor
the
attracted
segment.
person. That's it.
Yeah, the pedo worship has got to stop. That's really bad.
So
It's getting really bad.
we are a platform for action, a community of learning, and a movement for change. What the fuck?
Oh wait, go back.
We're a movement for change by not changing a single goddamn thing.
So wait, it's
Like in here.
yeah, hold on.
And I do recommend
In
like this-
short, if you go down to the bottom a little bit, down, right there, up in that purple part, up.
Up
More.
here?
No.
More? Okay.
There.
Yes.
This is a gross
In
website.
short, what is inclusive capitalism? In short, business that profitably works for the common good.
Okay.
Their UX designer sucks.
Yes.
These colors are terrible.
I mean, it's colorful, but like this, like
If you go on the top, you can't even see the logo. I mean, this is just whatever.
Inclusive capitalism is fundamentally about creating long-term value for all stakeholders, businesses, investors, employees, customers, governments, and communities, guided by an approach that provides equality for opportunity for all people to preserve prosperity and quality of life, irrespective of social, economic background, gender, ethnicity, religion, or age. Equitable outcomes to those who have the same opportunities and sees them in the same way. Fairness across generations so that one generation does not realize near-term benefits that incur long-term costs that overburden future generations. Fairness in society to those whose circumstances prevent them from full economic participation.
So bullshit on all accounts when in regards to fucking capitalism. Like, impossible. But anyway, so I wanted to continue this article a little bit. Although that video was fabulous.
I mean, at minimum, it makes for a good laugh.
Yes.
This is why I want you to read Capitalist Realism by Mark Fisher.
Yeah,
my sister has a professor, and like he talks about this very thing about like us like kind of like adapting capitalism within our culture, and so they just hijack all these different definitions in order to kind of like make it seem
it's like bootstrap bullshit.
I'm definitely gonna get the book and I could probably read that within a couple.
It's a short read. It's a really short read. Anyone watching who's a reader, read Capitalist Realism.
So as Smith writes, all of these arguments are a coping mechanism for the public to deal with evidence they cannot otherwise refute. When the facts become concrete and the powers that be admit to their schemes openly, some people will revert to confused denial. They don't want to believe their organized evil on such a scale could actually be real. If it did, then everything they thought they knew about the world might be wrong. The article mentions a new control center of globalism in the Council for Inclusive Capitalism that is really a rebranding of the better-known term, the New World Order. When we say that, we're not just saying a new world, no, it was an actual anyway, and it's agencies like the World Economic Forum, which include who, people? We just saw a few of them. And Rothschild's definitely part of that too. Bill Gates, part of that. Almost like every world leader, including Putin at one point, was part of that, I think.
I think they have our best interests at heart. Actually.
Sure.
Actually, I think the World Economic Forum is a force for good in the world.
Yes.
They want all of the working class to rise up and live comfortable, happy lives.
You hear that, YouTube? We're cool. The new branding uses techniques and words that progressives and socialists are masters at creating. In effect, creating words that suggest the exact opposite of what they really do. For example, here the word capitalism, that long-standing symbol for individualism and freedom, in parentheses, is rebranded by globalists. And the new organization does not just use the word capitalism, but inclusive capitalism. When with the new label,
I don't define capitalism as individualism and freedom. I just define it as fucking people over.
Pain.
Profit.
Yes.
Not even one time. They never even said what inclusive capitalism is.
It's all words.
They just went off on talk.
No,
what the fuck is inclusive capitalism?
I figured it. No, I figured it out. It's like fucking people over, but people that look like me doing it.
Is this like this is like the Jersey Devil inclusive capitalism? It just doesn't really exist, you know. So with the new label, it moves away from using collectivist words like world and order, replacing them with the benign-sounding inclusive capitalism. Apart from, it's like a fucking Austin Powers sketch. It's like so fucking stupid.
It's a parody.
Well, Mr. Evil, we'll have to call it something like inclusive capitalism. That way, everyone will be happy. Like, you fucking...
Capitalism. For everyone. I love this comment.
The people can't be that dumb. Like, but they are, sir. Apart from observing the new symbolism... Like, suggesting...
Capitalism.
Oh, and she's probably going to show up...
capitalisms.
That lady's going to show up on one of these for sure at some point. You know, shout out for the reason white girls read Oprah. I'm stealing that joke, and it's a great joke. People should go find that. Apart from observing the new symbolism suggesting individualism, to the globalist grand continued project of collectivism. Jesus, yeah, obviously they needed a rebrand. There's too many big words. One observes the New World Order project has continually changed its name from being called the Multilateral World Order, the Fourth Industrial Revolution, and the Great Reset, among others. The changes are meant to find
those names. They couldn't get away from the conspiracy. Like
yes.
Out of all of them, they couldn't get away from it.
Now it's inclusive capitalism. So
right. But you know what? I think it's interesting that they have to rebrand because people are catching on.
Yes.
So like people who are more critically thinking are able to kind of catch the bullshit. So they're like, oh no, like it's not that, it's actually this, which we don't know entirely what that means, but like this is what it really is, and it's going to benefit you as well as the whole world and all this kind of stuff. But
yeah, it's going to be great.
But it's still like this.
Build back better, everybody. The changes are meant to find better, more benign words for the now as suggested above, but also meant to hide the New World Order from, as Smith notes, a public that grows increasingly wise to the conspiracy. You were saying, Collin?
Right. Yeah.
As Smith observes, the names change, but the meaning is always the same. The article comes from a site off the everyday news grid of two-party politics has put much of the nation in a type of hypnotic state, like watching the back-and-forth ball in an endless tennis match, like watching the back-and-forth swinging of a timepiece on the chain of a hypnotist. Ironically, the article itself creates evidence that, as the authority says, the public reader cannot otherwise refute, and it's too hard for many to believe the new version of a new and improved New World Order in the Council for Inclusive Capitalism continues the agenda of creating a global government. It is not surprising that the mainstream media labels the idea of an agenda for global government a conspiracy theory. In doing so, they provide a handy psychological coping mechanism for living in a strange new world that cannot otherwise be refuted. So, closing thoughts?
I mean, as I said, I think it's, on one hand, this gives me some hope a little bit, only in terms of like, as I said, I think people are kind of catching on the bullshit, and I think it shows that people are actually doing their research and actually are kind of
keeping up with it.
BS.
Yeah.
That's the case?
Like
really
of what this really entails.
I think so. It's like the cat's out of a bag problem, right? Where it's like, as long as you follow the money now, it's like they all got targets on them, so you can just like watch where they go, where do they put their money, who do they hang out with, you know.
Yeah, you can't really put the cat back in.
Yeah, like.
But I think, the idea of like the Great Reset, the New World Order, you know, like these kind of like Illuminati-ish type.
Yes.
Phrasing, like.
There's people who will still like scoff at you over that, though.
I think that was on purpose too. I think the reason they called those organizations that was because it sounded conspiratorial and whatever. And now it's like people don't care about that, like necessarily. Like as long as it sounds plausible, which it is, right? And you can actually point to it.
Nice.
Right.
All that matters.
I mean, although thinking about this now, the idea of inclusive capitalism, honestly, in this day and age, kind of makes a lot of sense to me, only because, you know, like, as I said, it's as I joke about it, but I think there's actually some truth to it. I think being in this is
meanwhile,
the idea of capitalism, when people generally think of capitalism, often than not, you know, me especially thinking as a Black person, you know, like I think of white people generally, you know,
people
like,
who hold capital.
In my mind, I think of like white people who are rich trying to fuck me over. Now, as I said, inclusive capitalism is the idea of like, you could be melanated as hell and you could still
steal from all your friends. Yes.
Right.
Yep.
So, but this is happening already, you know, like, I mean, take like, and I'm just going to use, I think probably a more relatable example, you know, like in music, for example, like I think in terms of like maybe like hip hop, you know, like I'm saying hip hop, because I mean, not so much now, but I think it's still kind of known to have a, you know, predominantly Black base, you know, who like buys it, who promotes that music genre, you know, like, and what did now, you know, in this day and age, what did they promote? Capitalism. You know,
Yeah.
so
That's
it's the
actually
idea of,
manufactured,
like,
but it's manufactured that way by the CIA.
These rich
Yeah.
rappers, many of whom are owned by white people, who are telling me that, like, oh, I need to have this car, I need to have this house, I need to have these shoes, I need to have this hat, I need to have all this money in order for me to feel like I'm good, you know? So I mean, we joke about the term, but like,
Well, I mean, I heard recently, like, you know, both Kendrick and Killer Mike, I think, is more just me looking at that. But with like Kendrick, he's openly stated that he wants to move away from talking about the struggle. Right. And like,
I mean, there's going to be, there's going to be, I think in this day and age, there's going to be like few examples to that. And I think actually, Greg, you've mentioned this, I think personally with me, because I asked you, like, I think some time ago, like, are there any punk musicians who are really punk? And you basically said punk is dead. You know?
there's Idols is the only thing I can think even gets close. And it's still like trying to be corporate controlled anyway.
It's really kind of scary, like the way that, and this is mainly due to the CIA and the culture for refoundation, especially like in the 60s era, where like everything in our culture is meant to serve in the interest of capital.
Yeah.
There's nowhere you can find anywhere. It's like a giant mind experiment. It's trying to figure out what is the best way we can reframe this so that everyone is on board.
Right.
And they basically took over everything. They hijacked everything, including definitions, in order to kind of just benefit this one particular system.
Well, that's my, you know, opinion on labels.
Yeah. I was in Barbados a couple of weeks ago, and like with my family, and a lot of people that I was talking to were like, well, you know, you live like in America, and like the idea that what people said to me, I never thought of this in this way, but like people said to me, you know, like people who go to America and the UK, often from the Caribbean islands, often look for better opportunities, you know, as far as better work, you know, better pay and all of that kind of stuff, with the idea of like, oh, you should be able to buy a house, you should be able to have a car, you should be able to, you know, have a good education that you're able to afford or whatever, you know, like, so, you know, so the idea is like, you know, if you're going away, you should either have these things, you know, like in, you know, your the countries that you're emigrating to, or like when you come back, you're able to get those things.
Right.
And I thought about that. It's just kind of like, well, in a way, I can kind of understand it because, you know, I think that's a very traditional way of thinking. But that's still tied to capitalism in a lot of ways, though. Like, and so it's like the idea of like, you're finding your worth in things that and I think depending how you use them may not always be for the betterment, you know, of others around you. It could, and I think especially like in America, because it's so individualistic, often than not is used in the idea of like, look what I have, look what I was able to do for myself, and fuck the rest of y'all, you know, like, because I worked hard for this shit. And so like, if you're going to work hard, if you can do the same thing, that pull yourself by the bootstraps mentality type thing. So while I feel like in certain ways, I think it's not necessarily wrong way of thinking, not necessarily, but I think we definitely have to be careful in terms of like how even the term inclusive capitalism is construed to the idea of like, it's just that. It's just like, if you work hard and like, do what you need to do, anybody can be elevated into like basically in the secret club. That's what I'm calling it. And you can like reach your dreams when the reality is most of us are not going to be able to meet the status of any of the people that we watch in the video. Most of us will never get there. I'll probably say pretty much all of us will never get there. And then the idea that people are not necessarily saying is like, in order for you to get that rich, you have to do something to the detriment of workers beneath you. So the question is, what did they do? You know, not necessarily them, but like, especially if they are old money, what did their ancestors do that hindered the wealth of others?
Well, and Steinbeck once wrote, because he couldn't use the C word, he had to use this other word. Socialism never took root in America because the poor see themselves not as an exploited proletariat, but as temporarily embarrassed millionaires. Which
that's exactly what it is. I was talking about that before, like how it's really embedded in our culture where we're so hyper individualistic. Everyone is like a pretend millionaire, or at least like in their heads, they're like, "Oh, that could be me too," and that I feel like that's exclusive to the U.S.
Yeah,
no, I don't think it's exclusive to the U.S., but I think like because she's definitely, I know, Greg, you know, like in Europe that you definitely find that too. But I think the U.S. is a special kind of crazy when it comes to that.
Yeah,
like I think it's just really hyper focused here to the point where it's actually like an ideology, like. And to kind of not necessarily buy into that, people are like, what's wrong with you?
Well, it's your worth is based off how much you can consume, you know.
The American dream is probably the fattest lie ever told.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Because you have to be asleep to believe it. Thank you, Carlin. Rest in peace.
Yep.